Okay. Hopefully we're up. Now, normally it takes a
Hey.
few seconds for the stream to actually catch up with the fact that we're broadcasting. So I'm just going to ramble for a moment until I'm
Hmm.
sure we're actually showing up.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, cool. Hello everyone. Happy Saturday. It's it's been a day. You have to forgive me for pulling an Amy Newman. I was having dinner and I thought for sure I'd set this for 9:30 because that's like the usual time. I do very much apologize. Uh, but we do have an excellent debate to go over today.
Mm.
It's the classic Frank Turek versus Christopher Hitchens. Uh, Frank Turek's very first actual debate. Right after he published his book, I think it's "I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist," and Hitchens has his book, and what's really funny about this is just yesterday Frank went and re-uploaded the debate because
Oof.
I think he saw this coming. So he was like, I need to cash in now before I start to look silly. I don't know. Probably not.
Mm.
I mean, Cross Examined has like 600 times the subs this channel does. I don't know if he's even aware. But it's just really weird timing, right? That we're about to do a
Mhm.
debate review. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. C'est la vie. Anyway, as always, we are joined by the august Mark Reed. How are you today, sir?
I am good. I am really good. I got up early and it was just it was just go from the start. I've been doing all kinds of things. I've been over on Simos Funk's channel for a bit where they're um discussing free will to show that I have free will. I left. Um and just been a good day so far. But it's still early. I still need my coffee, so I'm probably going to grab another cup after this, or like during some point. So you will excuse me if I do that because I'm still
Yeah,
very
yeah.
tired. But
Hell yeah. I mean,
that's
in my
okay.
long delay, I refilled my coffee too, so I'm all set on that one. But
Oh,
my
okay. So
goodness.
yeah, you're actually I'm taking care of your audience while you're off doing whatever. That's fine. That's correct. No, it's perfectly fine. I'm always in the mood for a Hitch debate. Always, it's always so good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's say hello to people before we get things going. I see a Nara. Hard to believe cross-examined is the balls to stream that hit slap on their chin. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was odd seeing them re-upload the debate from 12 years ago. In fact, I have a graphic if I can figure out how to show it real quick. Let's try opening it in a Chrome window and then share this tab and then put the tab in the stream. There we go. There it is. I took the screenshot yesterday while they were re-up. They were doing it as a premiere. Like they didn't even change the thumbnail. Whatever, whatever. It's
Wow.
fine. I don't know. I don't know. Um, I see
That's a really
Kalasia.
crappy thumbnail as well. I can
It
do
it
better
it
thumbnails than
sure
that one.
is.
Yeah. And
Good to see you
I'm
as
useless at
always.
thumbnails.
And welcome, new member. Hooray!
Yeah.
It's good to have you back on board. And I do believe that puts us at the threshold for the next emoji. So we'll have members will get to
Nice.
vote on the next emoji because YouTube opens up the slots based on membership numbers. So yeah,
Nice.
cool stuff. We'll have a new thing soon. Yeah, I heard your credit card was hacked, and I was
Oh, that
really sorry to
sucks.
hear that. But yeah, it's very unfortunate when that happened. I had that happen to me once. I had a credit card, a business credit card with a $5,000 limit, and
Mm.
hackers got a hold of it, and I got a call from the company saying, "Did you order $4,000 of penis pills and have them shipped to India?" And I was like, "I did not. Thank you for calling."
That's exactly what somebody who bought penis pills shipping them to India would say. I
That's
know your
true.
scam. Yeah, that's exactly what a penis pill smuggler would say.
Yeah, yeah. It's a oh boy.
Hmm.
Electric Monk, good to see you as always. And let's see. I
I
think
loved I loved that book. Just for the record, I absolutely loved that
that's a
book.
book.
Um,
How
well, it
did I
was
not
in
know?
it was a Douglas Adams book, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. where there was an electric monk that was like a device that it was a device to save you time by having faith in things for you.
Oh, cool.
Right. So instead of like, toasting your bread or microwaving something, it would believe things for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, in typical Douglas Adams fashion. But
Yeah.
yeah, Electric Monk, I get the reference. I do. And it was a great book.
Yeah,
Actually,
I'll have
the
to look that
Netflix
up.
well, the Netflix series wasn't bad either. A lot of people didn't like it, but I liked it. I thought it was quite it was good. It was really good. If you like quirky stuff, like really quirky and strange stuff, I liked it.
I do enjoy quirky and strange stuff. It
Are
just
you familiar with Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency?
no.
Oh, it's sort of Douglas Adams' lesser known work, but in some ways I think it was better than Hitchhikers. Just for the oddballness of it, I really, yeah.
Yeah, I feel a little, I don't know, like missing something that big, like I don't know. It's weird. It's like finding out, Isaac Asimov wrote another series that you somehow never heard about or something.
Right, right.
It's trippy. And I see Dave. Hello, Dave. Good to see you as well.
Mm,
And
Dave, good to see
Doc, of course,
you.
had to interrupt my doing nothing for this. I know. My apologies.
You can do nothing anytime. Come on now.
Yeah. And Dr. T, good to have you around as well. Okay, I think that's everybody.
Hmm.
Let's see. Ecclesia says there was a radio series in the early 80s that dramatically read Douglas Adams stuff. That,
Right.
doing Douglas Adams as a drama, that could be, it could go really, really hilarious or not work at all. I'm not sure
Well,
which.
the first sort of adaptation of Hitchhikers was a radio play. They did it on the radio by the BBC
Hmm,
um, in England, and that's where the first adaptation of the book came from.
neat. Oh, and there's a Jake Nelson. Hello, Jake.
Hey, Vacation, good
Hell
stuff.
yeah, hell yeah. All
Oh, it
right.
was Radio 4, was it? Yeah, gotcha, Electric.
Oh, Dr. T's on vacation too. It's
Oh,
vacation
everyone's
time.
on vacation. Woohoo!
Yeah. Hooray, hooray. All right, speaking of kicking things off,
Could
what
have
do you
worn our
say?
Hawaiian shirts.
Oh, yeah, but then I love Hawaiian shirt. I used to have a really cool festive shirt, but then people started confusing me with a certain creationist, so I had to stop.
Oh no,
It's
unfortunate.
it's bad enough I get confused with Skylar Fiction as it is.
No.
Actually, I don't mind Skylar. I don't agree with him on a fair chunk of things, but he seems like
Yeah.
pretty cool people.
No, Skylar, I've met him briefly. He's a nice guy. He just, yeah, I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I think he does amazing stuff. He really does.
Hmm, hmm.
I
Oh,
saw his
and Amaya. Hello, Maya.
I saw him when he was talking to Matt Powell, and he
Hmm.
like so. What I admired about his talk with Matt Powell, I only knew this from when I did a sort of thing on Matt Powell, awful Matt Powell was kind of thing. He really kept his temper in check and like actually sort of dug down to what Matt Powell believes and let him gave him enough rope to hang himself. It was really beautifully done. Sort of, saying, well, why do you think this and why do you think that? And you could see like with some of the stuff he was saying, um, I mean, advocating that children should be killed that are
Hmm.
disobedient to their parents, kind of thing. You could see that the twitch, like, what are you talking? But let him elaborate on it, so everybody could see what a monster the man is. Just beautifully done. I've seen other debates where he's gotten a bit hot and angry, but that's understandable considering the
Hmm.
topics. But that one, he just he just gave Matt that rope. It was fantastic.
Yeah, sadly for Matt, it doesn't take much before he walks himself down the
Right,
plank.
right. He's his own worst enemy as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, um, but it's a good thing we know about his beliefs rather than he just hides them away in secret,
Hmm.
because we should know just what a monster the man is.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, enough
Mm.
about him.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
get to a
We're here to talk
completely
about Hitch. Yeah.
yeah.
Another
Let's get
awful,
a,
but
a
is
completely different
Turek.
monster.
Uh,
Hmm. I know, and what's worse about him is he's influenced an entire
mm,
generation of wannabe apologists. I hear people, even well-known people like that. What do you meme guy? Earlier today, Gurr was reviewing some of his videos, and he directly quoted Turek with that whole, oh, we know there's a God because the thing that started the universe has to be timeless, spaceless,
mhm.
immaterial, personal, yada yada,
uh,
whatever the fuck.
that's
I'm
not Turek.
I know Craig started it,
That
but Turek has made
wasn't
it
that Craig. Yeah.
much more popular with his five proofs of Jesus or whatever, or four proofs
Ugh.
or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Not important. Point is, the dude's a bad influence.
Yeah.
So let's see what he has to say.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Turek. Before I get started, let me ask you this. How many have heard me before, or this is your first time?
Okay, he's kind of fast.
How many of you are here tonight? How many do not respond to surveys? 3 out of 10 don't respond to surveys, Dean. This is my first formal debate. So give me a little grace if I can't cram everything I want to say into 20 minutes. I will say, however, I've had many informal debates, most of them with my wife, and I have not fared very well there. I will say, however, that she is probably the perfect sparring partner for Christopher Hitchens because her nickname at our house is Nails.
So that's a weird
That didn't.
take. Like what?
That joke did not land. Hey, like nobody in the audience is like, yeah, that's a swing and a miss, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and even the way he phrased it, like she's a perfect sparring partner for Christopher Hitchens. Cool, put her on stage. Let's watch her spar
Well,
with Christopher Hitchens.
well, I think the whole point as a sparring partner is the person you practice against. She's a perfect sparring partner because, yeah.
Yeah, it just I don't know. But we will see momentarily he will start to break in some of the shtick that he uses in every single presentation to this very day. Because he just I don't know. Maybe he believes in recycling. Save the planet.
Save the planet.
And Nails is the type of woman that if she ain't happy, ain't nobody in the house happy. So hopefully I'm prepared for a very formidable opponent in Christopher Hitchens. And I do want to say that I very much like Christopher Hitchens. I've been following him for many years. I'm kind of a political junkie, so I've seen him around quite a bit. And I appreciate his charm and his wit, and I agree with him on a lot of things. Obviously, not the issue of God. That would make a very boring debate. But I will say that I went up to Christopher just about a half hour ago, and I shook his hand, and I said, Christopher, I'm actually a fan. And he smiled, and he said, the night is young.
First genuine laugh of the night, and it was
Yes,
actually Hitchens' joke.
Hitchens. Yeah, yeah. But like he pauses for the laughter. Like if he just naturally said it and just as a bit of a light-hearted thing, it'd be fine. But he's pausing for the laughter that's just not coming. It's not coming, bro. Accept it. Um, Yeah, so it's weird that he's bringing up like his marital problems in this debate. Like I think you could have found some better ways to joke than sort of bring up your marital issues. Like you've walked into a counselor's office for marriage counseling, and we know her as Nails, and if nobody's in the house, no one's happy. It's like okay, well, I'm not sure. TMI, brother, TMI.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
No,
I want to thank the United Secular Alliance. I want to thank Daniel Pendergrass. Where's Daniel? You here, Daniel? He was my contact here. I also want to thank Dean Timothy Hulsey, and I also want to thank, of course, Christopher for doing this debate. I think it's impossible not to like Christopher. And as I mentioned, I do. He's carrying the cross for atheism, and he carries it very well. Tonight, I'm going to carry the cross for theism. And I want to point out that I think we're both trying to explain the world around us. We both have the burden of proof to explain why reality is the way it is.
ooh, shifting the burden of proof
Yep.
right off the bat. Just swing one.
Yeah. So again, the topic of the debate is does God exist? So
Right.
Frank clearly has the burden here. But he wants
Right.
to just, nope, we need to share the burden. It's equal. And
Well, in debate, you kind of do have a burden of proof kind of thing, but yeah, I mean, the burden of proof is not for Christopher to demonstrate that there is no God. The burden is for him to demonstrate a lack of reasons why there is no God. So he's got a much stronger position than Frank's trying to insinuate here, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, it's, I don't know. It's trippy.
hmm
I have to show how reality is best explained by theism, and Christopher has to explain how reality is best explained by atheism. And I think
No,
we
he
should
doesn't.
follow the evidence where
No,
it leads. I think that the
no.
evidence we see all around us and within us leads to a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, personal, powerful, intelligent, moral creator, i.e. what we would call a theistic God.
And
How?
that's, even if all those random assertions actually were true and he could back them up, it just saying that equals God is the biggest non sequitur. I don't even know what to do with this guy.
I don't know what it would mean for something to be timeless as well. Like, I mean, eternal is one thing, but timeless, how could it do anything? As far as we know, causality needs time to occur. So basically, you're talking about something that can't cause anything because it doesn't have any time to take any. Like, it's just such a nonsensical kind of thing. Why does it have to be personal? I never understood that about William Lane Craig's God thing. He just inserts the personal in there because reasons. You know, it's really weird.
I've heard Frank expand on that and say it has to be personal because it needs to be able to make a choice to create the universe, which I think is a mistake because he's trying to explain it more so it makes more sense, but he actually makes it worse because you can make the same argument for an avalanche. That's one of my favorite counters
Right.
to it is, something happens that makes that snow go down the hill. It has to be personal to make the choice to do it, you know?
But that isn't necessarily what personal means. You know, so when you're talking about a personal God, you mean a God has a like a deistic God as opposed to a personal God. The personal God has a relationship with people, kind of thing. Like it is engaging as a person with people. So I don't know. Maybe he's sort of maybe I've got the wrong idea of what he means by personal, but
He means
yeah.
personhood. When he explains it in other videos, he
Okay.
means personhood rather than. Although he uses personal for that equivocation thing, so it can be like, it's your personal savior, this is a personal God, yada yada.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up. It was yeah. So some a personal God is a supreme being with self-conscious and will, capable of feeling and have the attributes and desires of a person, and enters into relationships with individuals and people groups.
God is a bigamist.
I thought he was just had ultimated Christian, but apparently no.
He's been cheating on forward slash.
I
How
think we
dare.
established that a while ago, actually, that God
Yeah.
was cheating on him. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just there's so much wrong with that one sentiment. But I mean, even if we bought into his conclusion, there's no reason it couldn't be an impersonal computer program or
Right.
some other similar mechanism that caused the universe. And then there's always that question of, where did God come from then? If everything that begins to exist needs a cause, well, then that's where William Lane Craig modified the argument and said, aha, God is eternal. He didn't begin, which is
Right.
blatant special pleading. So,
Yes.
we need to do better.
And this creator created this universe and the life within us, or the life within it, I should say. Now, I'm going to try and summarize my 450-page book, at least the first 200 pages of it, in the next 20 minutes or next 18 minutes at this point now. And
Buy
that
my DVDs.
Yes. I know. I love this part. I was like, I'm going to try to summarize in the time I have left. Dude, you just wasted 2 minutes talking
Yeah.
about how your wife makes your life hell. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So talk about your dysfunctional marriage and then complain that you don't have enough time to talk about the actual subject of the debate. And buy my book, by the way.
Yes.
It's an impossible task. That would be about 20 pages a minute. Actually, I probably can do it because I'm originally from New Jersey. See, I speak at 150 words a minute with gusts to 350. So if I go a little quick and you want to see more of the evidence, please get the book. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. And I want to point out that all the proceeds from the sale of the book will go to feed needy children. Mine. Okay? See, I've got...
And that was funny. The first
that was funny.
200 times he did it. But he still does it in every single conference he does. I'm like, dude, you need new material.
I got 3 sons. The oldest 2 are in college right now, so I need a little help, and one of them is sitting right over here. All right, Christopher.
You just complained you don't have enough time. Jeez, like, come on.
Let's do more family stuff. Yeah, and the fact that the 2 sons were in college then, this debate was in 2009. I mean, I'd imagine the youngest. Yeah, the youngest would be out through college by now, right? So why does he keep using... I don't know. Whatever.
82 of God is Not Great, available at fine bookstores everywhere, says this: thanks to the telescope and the microscope, religion no longer offers an explanation for anything important. Exactly wrong. I think due to the telescope and the microscope...
So it's kind of like roundabout, because he's quoting Hitchens, but he's kind of roundabout referencing the famous line from Laplace when, you know, he constructed his model and Napoleon said, well, where is there room for God in your model? And Laplace says, there's no need for that hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Maybe Frank will make a compelling case for how all this stuff proves God is real.
Sure. Let's hear him out.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I'm going to give you 4 more that are a result, I think, of a theistic worldview. I'm going to spend most of my time on the 3, and then I'll just mention the last 4. The 3 are the cosmological argument from the beginning of the universe. The next one is the teleological argument from the design of the universe and the design of life. And the third is the moral argument. Let's start with the cosmological argument.
So he's going to parrot William Lane Craig, is what you're telling me. He's going to do exactly what Craig did in his debate with Hitchens, but without the personal testimony of the Holy Spirit as the real proof part.
Well, he's already started by begging the question, because he sort of said, well, arguing the theological argument from the design of the universe that was created. So he's already making statements that have not yet been established. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a very light inference of it, because I understand that he's sort of giving that conclusion ahead of time, but he's kind of begging the question.
Yeah,
a lot of these... Well, I think the whole theological argument is begging the question. It's saying, hey, we can tell from the creation that it's a creation. It's like, well, did you ever establish it was a creation?
Yeah, it's the same thing Roy Comfort does, slightly more subtle. Yes. With a creation needs a creator. Smuggle in that word. It's a fun time. Also, I note that none of those things that he mentioned have anything to do with a microscope, and telescope is really pushing it, even for the cosmological argument. So, I don't know. The fact that he was like, oh, the microscope and the telescope point towards God. Here's some things that have nothing to do with those that prove my point. I don't know.
Well, I guess I'd have to hear the arguments in full. But I've seen Frank before. He's terrible, so... You're probably right, but, let's see if he actually ties it up.
Yeah, miracles may happen.
Argument, and this is basically the argument from the Big Bang, that the universe had a beginning. If it had a beginning, it must have had a beginner. Now, for some reason, Christians are afraid of the Big Bang. I'm not afraid of the Big Bang. I believe in the Big Bang. I just think I know who banged it. Now, the evidence for the Big Bang is good. I'm going to give you evidence in an acronym, SURGE, S-U-R-G-E. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I think even Christopher in his book on page 65 says the Big Bang is the accepted origin of the universe.
Yeah, you don't have to argue the Big Bang is accepted science with people who accept science, Frank.
Right.
But he still does that SURGE thing today, too. No one cares, no one likes it, but he still does it because having your own acronyms, I guess, makes you sound smarter.
S stands for the second law of thermodynamics, that the universe is running down. As that sun is up there, it is burning out. Ultimately, we will go to heat death, as Christopher has said in his book. Well, if the universe is eternal, that sun would have burned out a long time ago, but since the sun is still up there, and we still have energy here, the universe must have had a beginning. The second law of thermodynamics also says that order...
Yeah,
The
that's
second law of thermodynamics is not violated by you know, like don't.
yeah. There's a lot in my physics. Like our sun is a population 1 star, which we know of population 2 stars, which are the population before ours, that because we name them in the way we've uncovered them, so to speak. And so the population 2 stars are the ones that blew up and created the
Yep.
heavy elements that our planet and star and so forth have. And before them were the population 3 stars, which were basically just straight up helium and hydrogen. And they created the first set of heavier elements that made the population 2 stars possible. TLDR, the fact our sun is still burning doesn't mean what he thinks it means. If
Yes.
it burned out, blew up, whatever, that would eventually lead to population, I guess, 0 stars, since we're counting backwards for some reason, but it would be a fourth generation of stars since the Big Bang.
Right.
So yeah, stuff burns out, but that doesn't mean that's the end of everything. Now,
hmm
many versions of Big Bang predict an eventual heat death for the universe, but that doesn't, it hurts my head because second law only applies to a closed system.
hmm
The universe itself might be a closed system, but any given galaxy is exposed to all the other galaxies. Every star
Yes.
system is influenced by the other star systems.
Yes.
There's so many interconnected systems going on. It bugs the hell out of me. Yes, our solar system is young. We still have comets. If the universe were eternal, the comets would have burned out ages ago too. Okay, fine. What's your point, though?
Yeah.
Ordered things go toward disorder. It affects the school. We have to paint the walls. We have to put gas in our car. The second law of thermodynamics also affects us as human beings. When you get older, the second law of
How
thermodynamics
does that
is...
show a god? I don't understand how it shows a god.
Well, it's a law, Mark, so there must be a lawgiver.
Ugh.
Also,
If that is his argument, I'm going to be so disappointed. Like seriously.
but for the record, biologically speaking, second law of thermodynamics is not why you age. That has nothing to do with it, because our entire ecosystem, our entire planet, is constantly taking in new energy from that big freaking sun up there. It's not you're not running out of energy. That's not what
Right.
causes aging at all. Oh yeah, we start with a battery. That's why toddlers are so, zoom. That's that. For fuck's sake, Frank. Isn't he's a doctor? Isn't he a medical doctor? I can't remember.
I think so. I can't remember. I don't. Mm, let's have a look.
It's probably not important. I'm just like, if he's a medical doctor, he really should know better, right? I don't know.
No, he's the administrator. He's the administrator. He's a doctor of ministry,
Oh,
minister of religion.
Oh,
So
cool.
his original thing was in he has a master's in public administration, so public service administration, and then he
Oh.
got a doctor of ministry.
Cool. So he's a Kent Hovind flavor of doctor. Awesome.
I don't know. I mean, Southern Evangelical Seminary, apparently. I don't know if that's accredited or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible he actually did some real study rather than just a diploma mill, but it's still not like what we would normally
Doctor
consider
of
to
philosophy.
be.
Yeah. No, I gotcha.
Pretend PhD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay. But yeah, like Dave says, he actually did go to a school. Like that administration degree probably is real.
Yeah, it is accredited through tracks.
Okay.
So it is an accredited higher institution.
Alrighty. Well, I guess that it doesn't excuse him from not knowing how aging works, but at least it's not
Right.
like a big professional flub from his actual education. Oh
Well,
well.
I don't think entropy's got much. Well, I mean, when you get down to it, entropy is the sort of disorder of all systems. But yeah, you're right. It's got very little to do with it, and I don't know how he's tying it into a god. That's the main thing. Like, how is entropy showing a god?
Yeah,
Is the
like
question.
I would expect an eternal universe with people who don't age and die would be a much better sign of a god. You know, like
Right.
suspension of
Yes.
natural rules. I don't. Maybe I'm weird though.
No, I don't think so.
Is seen by the fact that we all get dresser disease. That's when our chest falls into our drawers. See, that's the second law of thermodynamics. The U in surge is the fact that the universe is expanding, discovered by Edwin Hubble in 1929. Hubble deduced that if the universe is expanding, if you watched everything in reverse, you would see it collapse back to a point, mathematically and logically to nothing. So the universe exploded into being out of nothing.
Oh,
That
it
is.
bugs the hell out of me whenever they say explosion. And also,
and nothing.
yeah,
Let's not forget the nothing there. Straw
Yes.
man in chat. Straw man in chat.
yeah. Where's my straw man button? This is exactly what this is for.
Yes, the S is not for second law of thermodynamics. It's actually for straw man. Is the
Yes.
S.
U is for Uno reverse. The burden
Uno
of proof is on you, my friend.
Well, that's true. We've hit that one as well.
I'm gonna need an R. Oh well.
The G stands for the Great Galaxy, the R stands for the radiation echo discovered by accident by Penzias and Wilson, two scientists working at Bell Labs in Homedale, New Jersey.
What is this
They
got to
discovered
do with
basically
a
the
god?
radiation afterglow, or the remnants.
Well, he's proving the Big Bang. He has to summarize 200 pages in just 18 minutes, Mark, so he's got to argue something that no one is disputing.
So what? I thought this was going to be surge is how we know that there's a god, but it's not. It's just how we know there's a Big Bang. Is that what he's doing?
I think that's what he's doing.
What the?
remnant heat from the initial Big Bang explosion. The heat is still out there. It's just a couple of degrees above absolute zero. Now, good theories predict future discoveries, and they said if the radiation afterglow was out there and the Big Bang really did occur, we ought to find very fine temperature variations among the radiation afterglow. So they sent up a satellite in 1989 to circle the Earth. It's called the Kobe Space Satellite to measure this radiation afterglow. And for 3 years, they found nothing until they tuned their instruments just a little bit more precisely and found that there were temperature variations in the radiation afterglow, and they were down to 1 part in 100,000. George Smoot, the leader of the expedition, said, if you're religious, it's like looking at God. Stephen Hawking.
Oh, well, you know, if one dude who probably was a Christian said so, you know, we should all just turn in our atheist church robes now or something. But at least he did attempt to tie it back to God. I'll give him credit there.
Yeah. Argument from authority.
Yeah. Yeah, the CMB is really, really cool. As many of you probably already know, Gamow and company predicted it ages and ages ago. Penzias and Wilson did the thing, and they were like, what is this crazy background noise? And eventually it turned out to be the thing. But we did have to wait.
Trying to get rid of the background noise. That was the hilarious part, that they had no idea what they'd found. They thought it was like some kind of interference, and were doing everything possible to try and get rid of the noise because it was happening wherever they pointed their radio telescope, like no matter what direction they pointed it in. So they thought something was wrong with the radio telescope. And so the people that got the Nobel were people that had no idea what they had found, which was hilarious because it really should have gone to the scientists that postulated that they would find it because they did the work. But that's not how the Nobel Prize works. So.
Yeah, the Nobel Committee does their thing. But the variations, of course, we did need to get the satellite up there because they are really, really, really fine. So we needed a precision measurement, not just from the ground, the signal won't go away. But what's also really remarkable about the CMB is that it's the only omnidirectional signal we've ever discovered. Like any other signal, it comes from a point source. Light from the sun, radio waves from some of the NGC objects and so on. But the CMB is fucking everywhere, no matter where you turn your telescope. And that's weird. That shouldn't be a thing, and yet it is.
It is, yeah.
Hawking said this is the greatest discovery of cosmology, perhaps the greatest discovery of all time. Those temperature variations allowed galaxies to ultimately form, so we could ultimately be here. The E in surge stands for Einstein's theory of general...
Well, he's getting a little ahead of himself on that one. He's not a legit scientist, so we probably shouldn't expect him to know. The temperature variations probably allowed galaxies to form as we understand them. If they'd been different, we'd end up with a different universe, but not necessarily one with no galaxies.
Right.
Relativity, which says time, space, and matter are correlative. You can't have space without time, you can't have time without space and matter, and in effect it says that the universe came into existence with space and time together. In other words, once there was no time, once there was no space, once there was no matter, and then bang, out of nothing, the universe exploded into being.
Not nothing, but whatever.
Nothing.
Let's just wave that aside, because I'm gonna have a stroke if I try to nitpick this whole thing, and I can see Dr. T is in the same boat.
Yeah,
he's like,
I can understand.
Make it stop.
What is nothing? Aristotle had a good definition of nothing. He said nothing is what rocks.
Wow. Wow, you're going from nothing in physics to nothing in philosophy. Wow, that category changes. Grinding gears, mate. Like, that was one hell of a shift.
Take a hard left at Albuquerque.
Let's talk about nothing in scientific terms before the Big Bang. Now let's go to Aristotle for my definition. Whoa! Whoa, man. You just went back for your definition on current physics, like, over 2,000 years. Like, what are you doing? Wow.
And the definition he picks, not just that it's from Aristotle from 2,000 freaking years ago, but he's defining it as what rocks dream about. Like, what the fuck is the relevance there, my guy? This guy, it's his first debate, but on the other hand, true. It probably should have been his last, because this is just bad.
Jake, I got whiplash on that one, mate. That changed gears so fast. Wow.
Oh my goodness. Oh hey, we have a person from Twitch. Hello, Roder. We're doing a debate review on the classic Frank Turek versus Christopher Hitchens. Welcome.
Nothing. There was no thing. There was not positive and negative energy, as Isaac Asimov has said. There was not a vacuum. There was not swirling mathematical points, as Dr. Atkins has said from Oxford. There was nothing, what rocks dream about, which means that the universe exploded into being.
Wait. Why would we believe Aristotle over, like, a current doctor of physics? Like, why would we... I don't understand. Like, how does sort of going back to Aristotle override? I mean, I understand Isaac Asimov was a science fiction writer. I get that. But you seem to have quoted a doctor from Oxford in saying, hey, it was not nothing, as in no thing. Why would we believe Aristotle over...
Yeah, and at the bottom, at the end, at the turn of the page, whatever metaphor you care to use, we don't frickin' know. It could be there's nothing in the sense of when you're under anesthetic and you're just not there. It may be that kind of nothing. Or it could be freaking ice cream and lollipops all day long. We have no idea. So it's jumping the gun so much to assert that it's nothing or that we can even describe what that nothing might be. It could very well be, like Lawrence Krauss likes to argue, a quantum foam of some kind that experienced reactions that led to a perturbation in time-space, creating our instantiation of space-time that we call this universe. We have no freaking idea, because we can't see outside the universe to measure it.
or Sean Carroll might be right that there is no beginning point, because as sort of time and space are compressed, it may in fact be eternal. But I don't think anybody knows sort of the very very beginnings of the universe. We just can't see that point. We can't calculate that point. There's a number of hypotheses, but I don't think anybody knows for sure. Except Frank Turek, obviously.
Well, yes. Yeah, because God told him. God has all the knowledge.
Yes.
It drives me so batty.
Space, all matter, all time, out of nothing. And several scientists have pointed this out. Stephen Hawking said almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. Agnostic astronomer Robert Jastrow, the man who sits in Edwin Hubble's chair, or who did until February when he died, he was an agnostic. He sat at Mount Wilson and looked through Hubble's telescope. He wrote a book in 1978 called God and the Astronomers. And here's what Jastrow wrote. Or here's what he said, actually, in an interview. He said, astronomers now found they painted themselves into a corner because they have proven by their own methods that the world began abruptly in an act of creation to which you can trace the seeds of every star, every planet, every living thing in this cosmos and on the earth. And they have found that all this has happened as a product of forces they cannot hope to discover. That there are what I or anyone would call supernatural forces at work is now, I think, a scientifically proven fact.
Except it's not. Like, you can argument from incredulity all the way to the top. Even if PhDs can, have ideas outside their field, it's whatever. But
yeah,
you can't just say I can't believe there's any way this happened naturally, therefore it must be something supernatural. You still have to demonstrate it.
And I think that I have issues with people saying, "Hey, we'll never be able to find that out." Because there's a million things that we never could envisage that we'd discover or find out how it worked. There were times when we didn't think we'd discover how the sun worked, or how we thought we'd never understand how weather worked, or all of these things we thought we would never work out how they worked, but we did.
Mm-hmm.
So people saying, hey, we'll never learn, we'll never discover the mysteries of how the universe started. How do you know that? How do you know that we will never get to those answers? I think it's just a position of faith that says, hey, we will never discover how the universe began. I don't know how you could possibly know what we will know in the future. It seems unlikely.
Yeah. I mean, every time we learn more, it blows us away completely. Like we're just about to come up on the 100th anniversary of Hubble proving that Andromeda was a galaxy in its own right, not just a nebula. Just 100 years ago, we went from thinking all of reality was just our galaxy to suddenly having galaxies beyond counting out to as far as our telescopes can still see today. It just goes on and on and on. The universe literally increased in size to a magnitude humans cannot comprehend. And that was just 100 years ago. The next time we get a breakthrough like that, and we probably will find another breakthrough like that, we can't conceive now of what that might show us.
Yes.
It's absolutely, it's just, and that's the coolest thing about science to me, is what will we learn tomorrow,
And who knows where we'll be in 1,000 years' time, in 1,000,000 years' time. I don't think anybody can say we won't know this, we'll never know this, or we'll never know that. I don't think that can be said for sure. Sure, we'll probably destroy ourselves before that point, absolutely. But, I don't think anybody can say with any kind of certainty what discoveries the future will bring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Molasses pointed out, turn of the 20th century, people thought we'd never figure out powered flight. Right. And then we did almost immediately. A couple of people did. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but don't forget that the reason why we said that is because of the monumental failures that went down. A lot of people tried to crack that nut and just could not crack it. So they said, no, it would be impossible for powered flight to work. We will never be able to have powered flight. And then some people did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep telling me what I can't do while I go ahead and do it. It's
Well,
These
it just
these
shows
boys.
that sort of the things, the path that we get to doing and understanding things in science is paved with failures.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is what they don't understand. When creationists talk about, they do these things on abiogenesis and it's all failures and they do it. Yeah, it is. That's what science does. It fails until it succeeds. That's the whole point. You're missing the point.
Yeah, but that's what makes science unreliable, you know.
Oh, yeah, so you can't trust it because it gets things wrong. Yeah, until it's right. It'll
Yeah.
continue to get things wrong until it's right.
Unlike religion, which we can trust to be wrong and stay wrong.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point. Religion can't change, so when it's wrong, it will stay wrong forever.
Yeah, gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Uh-huh.
Tim, I believe I recorded this at 1.25, which is why when I tried to speed it up to 1.25, it was too fast.
It was a little fast, yeah, it was.
Yeah. It's hello, John Rapp. I know you're around here somewhere. Where's the thing? Yeah, most handsomest and smartnessy bloke.
Smartnessy.
Veracity's 1-2, and on the 3,650,000th day, man created God, and he saw that it was good for profit and control. I love it.
Nice.
Oh boy! All right, let's continue with Frank.
Why isn't an agnostic astronomer saying supernatural forces are at work? Why couldn't nature have created the universe? Because there was no nature. There was nothing, what rocks dream about, and then the entire space-time continuum leapt into existence. If it's not a natural cause, by definition, it must be a supernatural cause, something beyond the natural. In fact, Arthur Eddington...
False dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
False dichotomy, because you're using natural like it's part of the natural word as opposed to artificial, and then you've switched. You've sort of gone, well, if it's not natural, it's supernatural. Well, wait, what about all the things that are not natural that are not supernatural? Like, for instance, if extra-dimensional aliens created the universe, let's say that's true. That would not be natural; it would be artificial, but it's not supernatural. So it's this conflation over the word natural, and I've encountered it time after time after time, where they sort of go, well, if it's not natural, if something is artificial, then it's not natural. And if it's not natural, then it's supernatural. Because we would see as, man creating a truck as that's not a natural thing, right? Like, so if you build a truck, the truck is not in part of the natural world. But it's not supernatural, Frank. It's not a magic truck. So I think he's conflating these two usages of natural to sort of say, hey, anything not natural has to be supernatural. Has to be.
Yeah, it's an equivocation on natural for naturalistic versus nature.
Yep. Yes.
Ay. Hello, Beamsy.
Hey, Beamsy.
Contemporary of Einstein, who was an expert in general relativity, said, quote, "The beginning seems to present insuperable difficulties unless we agree to look on it as frankly supernatural." So the cosmological argument leaves...
Okay, so that's misleading as hell. Arthur Eddington, he was the only person in the English-speaking world who took Einstein seriously. And this was at the beginning, when Einstein proposed special relativity. He hadn't even written general relativity yet. And Eddington, cool story. He wanted to test the theory because he believed in Einstein's math. But it was like World War I time, so people in England were like, I don't know, a German scientist, pretty sus. And Eddington's like, no. Let's test his theory, and if we can prove him wrong, then it'll show the dominance of Newton, the English hometown hero. So he kind of like double agented his own government to get financing for his expedition. They still had to wait 2 more years to do it because of the stupid war. They had to try again later, but still, that was how he played it, and it was really slick. But the point is, this was all back at the very, very beginning when all the implications, like this was before Hawking had worked out some of the field equations. This was before we had Hubble's proof that general relativity was even plausible, that there was a general relativity. It was the very, very beginning. So there was no understanding of what the implications of the theory meant, just that the math was good. So
Yeah.
Eddington saying this looks like it could be supernatural is just his way of saying this is amazing. Honestly, the fact that Einstein, a human with a human brain, came up with all that shit, that's more supernatural than what the theory's describing. Because it's
Yeah.
such a paradigm shift. It's so different from anything we'd had before. But yeah, that's my rant on that one.
Leaves us with one question. Either no one created something out of nothing or someone created something out of nothing.
Another false dichotomy.
Whoa, what? Yeah, no, that's not cool, man. That's not cool.
Yeah, I honestly, I'd be inclined to give it to him. I'd be like, you know what? That's a major fallacy. Screw you, Frank. But also, so what? If I grant it, so what? You still have to demonstrate you're someone. Come on now.
The atheistic view is no one created something out of nothing. The theistic view is someone created something out of nothing. Which view is more reasonable? I think Julie Andrews had it right. Nothing comes from nothing. Nothing ever could.
Oh, yes, that's a scientific source. Sound of Music lines.
Julie Andrews.
Yeah.
Plus, like the way he's talking about nothing, and this is the problem with creationists. They talk about nothing as if it is something. Like, as soon as you say something exists or something is, for instance, so the way that Aristotle was like, nothing is what rocks dream. As soon as you say the is part, you're already in the realm of incoherency, because you're saying that it exists in some way. Now, I realize that there's people with Platonic ideals. Nothing kind of trips them up, or non-existence. The concept of non-existence trips them up. You can't have nothing. Nothing can't be anything. So Frank's already into the realms of incoherency when he's saying that something was created out of nothing, because nothing doesn't exist. It isn't something to, like, he's talking about nothing like it's something.
Yeah, and so a couple of things. First of all, if God exists outside of the universe, it's not a nothing there. There's a God there, not nothing. So Frank's side of the equation falls apart. Second is, if we're going to borrow not really relevant quotes from other sources, I'm reminded of the universe of Bohr's a vacuum. So if there were ever a nothing, one could intuit perhaps that it would instantly decay and create a universe spontaneously, because
a vacuum
nothing is
not a
unstable.
nothing.
Yes, I know.
Like, you can't, like, if there were a nothing, that is completely incoherent, because you're talking about something. Like, this is the thing, it boggles the brain, because they talk about nothing like it is something, and it's not. Like, so when we're talking about nothing at the start of the universe, we're not talking about no thing, because it is something. So it's just sort of Lawrence Krauss's book, striking again, the universe from nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, it bugs me that was that he named it that. I realize why it's provocative, but it bugs me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beamsy, I know my hand, it appears to have nothing, but in fact, there's a considerable amount of atmosphere that involves nitrogens and oxygens and a little bit of CO2 and some other fun things. There's also electromagnetic radiation zipping through. There's virtual particles probably popping into and out of existence. There's a lot going on in this seemingly empty space. There's very much not nothing there.
And we can conceptualize no thing, right? We can conceptualize that, like the absence of something. And so if you absence everything that could possibly be there, then you have nothing. We can conceptualize that, but we can't actually, like, it isn't actually possible to do. it's like a married bachelor. You can conceptualize that, right? You can conceptualize paradoxes like the grandfather paradox, but they are incoherent in the real world. They cannot possibly exist. So I think that nothing that he's talking about, like so what rocks dream about kind of thing, kind of nothing, the philosophical nothing, it just cannot be in the real world. You can conceptualize it like a married bachelor, or like a paradox of time traveling back and killing your grandfather. But you can't actually have that happen in the real world because it isn't an incoherent statement.
Yeah, yeah. Melissa's just mentioned neutrinos, and that makes me want to. This is irrelevant, but it's really cool. So the ice cube array that detects neutrinos and such, set in Antarctica, deep underground, it's seeing the neutrinos through the Earth and whatnot. It took a picture of the Milky Way from the neutrinos. So, we've got the top bar is the Milky Way invisible light, and then the bottom is the same Milky Way with just neutrinos. It's
Okay.
yeah, it's so cool. I was thrilled when I heard about it. So yeah. Oh, let's see what else. Our chat is busy today. Clayton points out, even in the
I don't
furthest
think it's
reaches
our
of
chat. I think
space.
it's your chat, but
Well, you're here too.
well, that's true. I mean, I can co-opt your chat if you want. It's I am the captain now.
Yeah. Arr, this be mutiny.
Yeah, this is mutiny. Prepare to walk the YouTube blank.
So Galatian points out that even in the farthest reaches of space, there are atomic and subatomic particles, photons, even in the smallest volume. Yeah, even on the as close to an edge of space as we know about, the event horizon of a black hole, there's constantly virtual particles popping into and out of existence there. That's what Hawking radiation is based on, the idea that a virtual particle pair forms on the edge, an anti-virtual particle falls in and annihilates with a real particle, making the other virtual particle become a real particle on the outside of the event horizon. Now, Hawking kind of messed up his math on that one. He forgot that it can go the other way around. The real particle can fall in, and the virtual antiparticle can go off into the cosmos and annihilate with something, which means now black holes don't even have to be close to you to get you. They can steal your particles from a distance. So it averages out. But even so, the point is, even at the edge of space, there's constantly stuff happening. That's really cool. Rob Thibault says, I'm a big fan of spontaneous existence. For sheer argumentation, non-existence is without limits or requirements by definition. And Uriah says, Ember, if there is nothing, a set where thing equals blank, an empty set, there is no element that can stop a universe from coming into existence without a cause. Absolutely. That's one of my favorite things to say. If there is nothing, true nothing there, then there's nothing preventing a universe from spontaneously appearing. And since there's no time, it will do so immediately. It's a little meta, but I fucking love it. Dr. T says, would people be interested in the opinion of an experimental physicist without a philosophical background on this topic? I could make a series, but I think my philosophical ignorance is a concern. Not necessarily.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that you could explain what nothing means in physics perfectly fine and have zero philosophical knowledge whatsoever.
Yeah, you don't have to rely on the philosophy component whatsoever. But also, to get the basics of the philosophy isn't super hard. It's literally just logic. All the rest is, it's the same logic you use in mathematics. It's just special terminology like black and white fallacy and such. It's just a grammar thing, that's all. Nobody suspects the Spanish neutrinos. Alrighty. Now, let's continue.
That's the cosmological argument. The teleological argument, the design argument, actually has two arguments contained within it. It is the argument from design, and there are dozens of factors about the universe that are precise.
What's that?
I said, sure is. It's the argument from design. Sure is.
Mm-hmm.
Precisely designed for the existence of the universe and life. So not only did the universe explode into being out of nothing, it did so with incredible precision. Stephen Hawking has noted that the universe would not exist if there was a decrease in the expansion rate 1 second after the Big Bang by only 1 part in 100,000 million. This led Hawking to conclude it would be very difficult to explain why the universe should have begun in just this way, except as an act of God who intended to create beings like us.
I'm pretty sure Hawking didn't say that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did not say that it was an act of God. I think you are quote mining, sir.
He's like, Hawking said, and then adding his own thoughts without making it clear. Yeah. And as to Hawking's estimate, we don't know. It's just a number to have a number. There's probably more context, and wherever the hell he pulled that Hawking quote from, the rest of the paragraph probably goes on to explain. But we have no way to calculate probability or what a change in any given thing would do, if it's even possible for those values to be different. It's just awful.
Not only is it designed in terms of its expansion, but the gravitational force is so precise. If you change the gravitational force by 1 part in 10 to the 40, nothing would exist. What's one?
And they like to say this one too. First part, 1 part in 10 to the 40, whatever. That's just large numbers gobbledygook.
Yeah.
We
large numbers are impressive.
Yeah. We can't change the gravitational constant. The gravitational constant isn't a dial in and of itself. It's based entirely on the energy density of the universe, how mass works within your time-space fabric, and the speed of time, for lack of a better term, because those 3 things all interact to determine what you experience as gravity. So that's not even a knob that can be moved, Frank.
Mm-hmm. Or we don't know if there was any other way that the universe could have had. Like, perhaps that is the only way that the universe could have formed or would have formed. We don't know the original parameters behind the formation of the universe. If there was a formation of the universe and it wasn't eternal, like Sean Carroll, there is so little information about it. We don't know if it is something that could have been variable, or whether it is, like the speed of light, a constant. Like that's the only way it could have been. Or we don't know the probability if there's multiple universes popping in and out of existence. It could be quite likely, given an infinite amount of them, or at least a huge number of them. We don't know anything about it. So this whole thing of saying, well, what's the probability it could have been different? You're going to find that difficult with a sample size of 1. Now, you can sort of try to address it with Bayesian statistics, but the problem with Bayesian statistics is you have to make some assumptions first. And if any of those assumptions are wrong, you can throw those Bayesian statistics out the window. So we don't know the probability, really, of the universe forming the way it did, because we simply don't have the parameters that went into the formation of the universe.
Yeah, and on top of that, even if the odds of getting the universe the way it is are a gazillion to 1, anytime you roll the dice, no matter how many dice, you're going to get a result. Right. Even if it were possible to get a different result, we don't know that it would generate a universe that isn't compatible with life. As many people have pointed out, Amy Newman, in fact, pointed out, it seems more like this universe is engineered or designed to create black holes rather than people, because out of all the stars we've surveyed so far, we only have found life on 1. And it's not even a sizable chunk of the surface of that planet, you know? Well, intelligent life. Like, we inhabit like 10% of the surface.
I can't remember who said that, but they said that if anything, like the universe is fine-tuned for black holes, I can't remember who said that, but somebody famous did say it. An astronomer, I believe.
I could see Hawking saying that. I don't know who did off the top of my head, but yeah, because it kind of looks that way, you know. It just Hugh Ross always says that we can tell from the fine tuning that the entire universe and all the other galaxies and all of this was created just to make life possible on one planet. Like it had to be this way for life to be here, and it bugs the hell out of me because he's got the anthropic principle completely reversed. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you're a PhD physicist, my dude. I realize that Hugh hung up his actual science 40 years ago to be an apologist, but still, that's just a fucking disgrace. So Beamsy sent us a link to a black hole. This is a distant galaxy, 8 billion light years away, 3C186, and we can see a black hole being ejected from the galaxy.
Huh.
Yeah, so that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's random, but it kind of has something to do with that whole universe created for black holes thing. Yeah, it's just it's so trippy. Yeah, and like Melissa says, the probability of any two protons colliding is infinitesimal. But there's so many protons floating around that it's pretty much inevitable, you know? Like when you roll the dice so many times. It's like the same thing with the abiogenesis argument. Oh, well, the probability of life arising through chemical evolution is so remote. Yeah, but you've got so many chemicals across the whole Earth. Right. It's like trillions and trillions of people trying to roll Yahtzee. Even though the odds are something like 1 in 300 million, you're still going to hit Yahtzee billions of times on the first roll.
Well, in a professional bridge tournament, somebody got a perfect bridge hand. Like all of the cards that they needed to win the hand dealt to them. The chances of that happening are so infinitesimally small that we would say that it couldn't possibly have happened yet with the amount of bridge that people have played, right? It just couldn't have happened. But it did. That's the thing about probability. Sometimes these things do line up and happen. Coincidence does happen.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's statistically possible, it can occur, even no matter how unlikely.
1 part in 10 to the 40. Stretch a tape measure across the entire known universe. Set gravity at 1 inch on that anywhere on that tape measure. If you move gravity, the force of gravity, 1 inch in either direction, we don't exist. There's also factors about our universe.
No science would describe the force of gravity in terms of inches, sir. Nobody, like, why are you describing gravity in terms of inches?
Because Frank is used to measuring. Never mind.
Yeah, okay.
System that cannot be explained unless there's a designer behind it. For example, the Earth rotation, 24 hours, just right. If it was a little bit more, a little bit less, we wouldn't be here.
Except that's not true either.
Yeah. Actually, we first thought that Earth had to be perfectly positioned to give rise to life. But now they're sort of saying, hey, it's actually a bit of a wider band than we first thought. Like the Goldilocks zone is kind of a bit wider than we have originally, envisaged, kind of thing.
Oh, very much so. I mean, Earth's orbital parameters change by about 5% over a long period of time, and then there's the axial tilt. There's a whole bunch of other things. But I actually go a step further and say that the entire concept of a Goldilocks zone is bunk, because the key is to get liquid water, right? To get life like us, you need liquid water, and that depends on two things: temperature and pressure. So you could have a planet much further back with a much heavier, higher pressure. Higher pressure is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And you'll have what the hell is the name of the thing? The noun is just not there. It's one of those laws that's named after the specific scientist, but it's the pressure law. Why is it not coming to me? Oh, this aphasia is getting bad, guys. Anyway, thicker atmosphere, you will have liquid water further away. Or you could do, be closer and change the temperature. There's all kinds of variables. You do have to be somewhat close to the star. Like if you're out by, Saturn, where you're getting like 2% of the sunlight we get here, it's probably not going to work out well for you.
Right.
But it's a much big boil. Yes, that's it. Thank you, Dr. T. Oh, I was having such severe tip of the tongueism. It like when I try to reach for a noun and it's not there, it physically hurts. It's not good, guys. But yeah, Boyle's law. So yeah, we have a lot more wiggle room than was previously proposed.
Right.
I am ranty today, aren't I?
No, that's all right. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, spicy ember.
The axial tilt, 23.5 degrees, just right. Change that a little bit. We're not here.
Also not true. Our axial tilt also wiggles.
Uh-huh.
Life has been on this planet for 4 billion years, give or take. The axis is wiggled. Mm-hmm. It's fine. The moon continuing to recede.
Yeah, and change some of these variables and say, hey, we would not exist, or that translates to life as we are might not exist. But it doesn't mean that no life at all would exist. Like there may be a lot different ways that they adapt to the, if we're a bit further out and the world was a bit colder, you'd probably see different forms of life, but it doesn't mean life wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
He really is, he's kind of sort of taking these things to say, hey, if this was changed, we probably wouldn't exist as, it has to be this way or else no. Like he's really conflating the two things in a very dishonest way.
Yeah, like Beamsy pointed out, there may be life on Titan because there's like liquid methane, there's rivers and lakes and such, there's clouds, there's shit tons of nitrogen. It wouldn't be life like we have here, but if the rules of the universe were such that Titan-like worlds were the only ones that were around and Earth-like worlds weren't, and life did arise on Titan, then we'd be on Titan having this conversation about how the universe is fine-tuned for Titanoids.
Yeah. Yep. But don't say Titan, he'll show up.
I'm pretty sure he will at some point anyway. There's quite a few people in the chat who were just in the last room that Titan was in, and
Okay.
It's almost inevitable.
The Jupiter being in its current orbit. If Jupiter wasn't there, we'd be bombarded with space material. Why? Because Jupiter acts as a cosmic vacuum cleaner. It attracts all the cosmic space junk to it rather than us.
So I know I'm interrupting every sentence. We don't know that. It could very well be that the reason our asteroid belt is so well trimmed is because of the presence of Jupiter. But for every comet that Jupiter sucks in, it also flings another asteroid into the inner solar system by its own gravitational distortion. Yep. It's causing as much trouble as it's preventing. Yeah, BMZ. Craters on the moon. Like...
Little craters on Earth.
Yeah.
No, I get what he's saying. Like it does sort of capture a lot of comets, but there's nothing to think that was planned, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of systems that we've seen with exoplanets, with like super Jupiters that are at freaking Mercury distance away from their star. So yeah,
and
no
that means
design there.
And that means that God designed a system in order to catch foreign objects to Earth, extraterrestrial objects that are incoming, and it doesn't work occasionally, and we get hit by a meteorite. Like, what, the perfect God has like this system that works only a small percentage of the time. Like,
yeah, it's just like
that?
With the craters on the moon, and yeah, Dr. T's granddad has a crater on the moon named after him, which is really fucking cool.
Nice.
Yeah. But, I mean, the moon catches something like 25% of all inbound towards Earth. It's a great shield, considering how small and far away it is, but 25% is a long way from 100%.
Right, exactly. That's my point. You'd think that a omniscient, all-powerful God would design a better system for catching meteorites. Just saying.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe not chuck them at us at all in the first place. I don't know.
That would be a good idea. But don't you know they're lamps thrown at devils? That's essentially what they are.
Yeah, the skylights are crashing down from the dome like in Truman Show.
Yeah. It's the Truman Show. Yeah.
There are a number of other factors I don't have time to get into, but Arno Penzias, the man who co-discovered the R in surge, the radiation afterglow, said this: astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe which was created out of nothing, one with the very delicate balance needed to provide exactly the right conditions required to permit life, and one which has an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan. A friend of Christopher,
Yeah. But Penzias thought there was supernatural activity. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Can you show us like evidence of that instead of just pointing at things and making assertions?
Yeah, so this is the argument from authority. So he's basically pointing to scientists, because when we're quoting scientists and quoting science, we're quoting their research, not their personal opinions, right? So nobody can sort of point at any scientist and say, well, hey, they have this personal opinion that this is the case, because whenever we're sort of appealing to science, we're saying, hey, this is what their research shows. We're not saying, hey, it's Hawking's personal opinion that this is how black holes work. That isn't what we're doing. And when we do that, like I point to Sean Carroll earlier and say, hey, it's his opinion that, the universe could be external. I do point out that we don't know that for sure. But he's pointing to these people quoting like, oh, well, that makes it so. No, they haven't demonstrated this to be so. That isn't the scientific consensus. That is one person in the field's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's an appeal to authority.
Yeah, and as for the dinosaur crater, hello Vesta, good to see you. It's I could see a theist arguing that was necessary because we had to clear out those pesky dinosaurs to make way for the mammals. The dinosaurs just weren't working out, so I don't know. It's crazy. Let's see, Van de Graaff crater. I kind of want to go look. You know what? I'll go into the actual thing. Where the hell is it? Oh, I can't copy in the... Okay, there we go. We'll copy and paste. That'll be faster. And let's go over here.
Yeah, so I was looking for that Hawking thing on him saying that a god... Like, he really said that a god's not necessary. He said that there is no god. So not only is Turek kind of doing appeals to authority by trying to quote what scientists' personal opinions are, he has also sort of quote mined scientists to try and which is a horrendous thing to do, because when you're appealing an argument from authority, you're misrepresenting what they have said. That's terrible. No, Atangelo Turek is not great. He is terrible, absolutely terrible. It's kind of fascinating that you think he's great. It's awful.
Yeah, it's pluses and minuses. He's one of the best they have, but he's still very, very bad. So I guess it's relative. It's actually kind of sad that he's one of the best they have. Oh wow. Oh, the Van de Graaff crater is radioactive. That's right. Fun. I wonder how that happened. Yeah, it is.
Atheist Steven Weinberg, who is an atheist, put it this way: life as we know it would be impossible if any one of several physical quantities had slightly different values. So not only is the universe precisely tweaked, and by the way, there would be no life unless the universe was precisely fine-tuned, as I just mentioned, but life itself is designed. Let me take you to your breakfast table for just a second. Suppose you wanted to have a bowl of alphabet cereal. You're a teenager, and you come downstairs to have a bowl of alphabet cereal, and you see the alphabet cereal's knocked over, and the letters from the alphabet cereal are spelled out on the placemat, and it spells, "Take out the garbage, Mom." What are you going to assume? Cat knocked the box over? Earthquake shook the house? Or are you going to say, no, that's intelligent design from an intelligent being? Or let's say you're laying
Well, I mean, if your mom literally signed the message, even if it's made from alphabet letters, it's pretty clear that your mom, like, show us somewhere in the universe where God signed his name. Where exactly is
Correct.
written? Like, is it on the backside of the sun? Yahweh was here. You know, if you're gonna go there, bring us something that's analogous, and then we can talk.
And this is simply a argument from personal incredulity. I personally don't think this could have been formed naturally because, like you say, it's not a comparable situation. You're talking about looking at the natural world and saying, well, I don't think that that could have been formed naturally. Therefore, it must have been alphabet things saying a message. But that's not how any of these natural processes work. We know that sort of alphabet soup is designed by somebody, and we know that the English language is designed by somebody, but we don't know that for DNA. Your incredulity is just, well, it can't have formed naturally. Prove it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a category error kind of thing, because if it were the way he described, it would be super simple to prove that there was a thingy behind it, but that's not
Yep.
what we're dealing with. I also like the pose he's in, just random, but like, God help me, my arguments are awful. I need
Yeah.
I need divine
This
inspiration.
debate is going badly. Please save me.
In the opening statement.
out on the beach and you see in the clouds drink Coke. What are you going to assume? Unusual cloud formation? No, you're going to say there has to be a
See,
sky.
that's what gets me about all of these examples. They're things that have never happened. Like, here's the thing. That's never happened, Frank. Like, nobody has spilled alphabet cereal, and I don't even know what that is, but alphabet cereal, and it's come out in a message for them exactly as you've described. And nobody has ever looked into the sky and it said, drink Coke, unless it's on a skywriter, like we have an explanation for it. Frank, when these things happen, then you can make a parallel to them. Oh, boy.
Yeah. Oh, Uriah points out God put a signature on the moon, but it got erased by the lunar bukkake. Wouldn't you know it? That's just bad design right there.
Always the lunar bukkake.
That makes me think of the P-Town argument.
That's one of the worst arguments I've ever heard.
Oh, it for sure is. And in one of my early videos,
Yeah.
it was somebody was presenting like 10 reasons to believe in God and brought that up, that like the moon is 400 times closer but 400 times smaller, making total solar eclipses possible. And I'm like, this is a shit argument, but it's the closest to one that I would actually, because at least it's a real thing. It's pure coincidence of us being here at this time, but at least it really exists and you can see it for yourself.
Writer up there, even if you didn't see him. Why? Because messages only come from minds. Well, it turns out there's a message in all life called DNA. We all know about it. All life has a message. I have DNA. You.
Oh, get the fuck out of here with this. Oh. It's like there's like multiple layers of equivocation going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, DNA is not a code. It is not a language. It is not. It just. No.
You have DNA. A banana has DNA. In Darwin's day, it was not known how incredibly
I'd avoid
complex
the bananas,
so-called simple life is. And they thought that maybe simple life could come together without intelligent intervention, and ultimately natural selection could take over. It's the theory of macroevolution. I'm sure you've heard of it, from the goo to you via the zoo.
Oh, Jesus Christ. He's using Matt Powell's, the same sources Matt Powell does.
Oh, God, why? So now he's basically going, well, I accept Big Bang, but I reject evolution. Why, Frank? Why? The same scientists that you're quoting all believe in, well, they accept evolution. It is a fact. The theory is the best model we have to describe what happened. Like, why?
I think
he an anti-evolutionist?
I don't think so. I think what he's driving at is there's no way. It's incredible to believe that evolution could possibly be happening without an intelligence guiding it,
right,
or something. Which makes me really, really wonder about well, like we have a tremendous amount of redundant genes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't think of the name of the one offhand, but there's 8 copies in our genes, and there's only 7 copies in chimpanzees. That's one of the ways we can measure how far back we diverged. I forget the damn gene off the top of my head, but it's not super important. But we both species have like extra copies,
Yep.
which is kind of a mark against intelligent design in my book because that's not good coding.
From the infantile to the reptile to the crocodile to the gentile. That's the theory of macroevolution. The problem is that now we know that this intelligent life couldn't have come together by natural laws because we now...
No, no.
No,
You're incredulous
no.
of it, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. It just means you don't understand what's going on, Frank.
Yeah, so I know that he's an anti-evolutionist because they're all the ones that the only people that use macroevolution are the anti-evolutionist people. Nobody else uses macroevolution because it's just all it's the same process. There's no difference between micro and macroevolution.
Yeah,
It's
there is no
something
theory of macroevolution. It's like,
Right.
what?
It's
What?
just an arbitrary sort of point that we made up to sort of differentiate between, things that have speciated and things that haven't. There's no difference in the process.
Yeah, and Dr. T, thank you. Unfortunately, I can't highlight it for some reason. StreamYard's just
Oh,
not bringing it up. But thank you for doing the gift sub thing, and congratulations, James, for collecting it. Welcome to the club. You get all the cool emojis. You get to vote on the next emoji, and there's a bunch of other benefits too, but I don't remember them all off the top of my head. There actually are a lot of cool perks, like uh, um, photos that I've done in the past. I put up occasionally for like custom wallpaper art. There's why am I having such a hard time with this? I should just go look it up. I'm not gonna write this second now. But yeah, thank you, Dr. T, and congratulations, James.
now know that the simplest life has the amount of specified complexity or information in it in terms of DNA of 1,000 complete sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, who's that according to? Not a Christian, not a theist. That's according to Richard Dawkins from his book Blind Watchmaker. I think it's page 116. Now, to
yeah,
believe that
famously believed in a god. Famously
Oh, absolutely.
believed in it. Richard Dawkins, yeah.
I'm sure he totally is all about specified complexity too.
Yes, yeah. And I'm sure he references specified complexity multiple times in his book, The God Delusion.
Yep, for sure.
Wow. He's awful. He really is. His mischaracterization, misquoting, quote mining, it's just awful. It's awful.
Yeah. Okay. I did pull up my thingies. You know what? I'm actually just gonna share the tab. Here we go. Okay, so base level sparks. You get the badges. You get access to the emojis. Priority reply to comment because YouTube will tell me when you comment on something, and members only live streams, which I haven't actually done yet, but I hope to start soonish. Next level up, Cinder. You get all that previous stuff plus the photos and such, exclusive wallpapers and polls. Like, should we cover this video or that video, that sort of thing. And then the top level, access to gameplay, merchandise discounts, and virtual video collaborations. And we've already done some of those. A week or two ago, we did a biblical slavery with Nara, who is a top level member. And I've got a couple people. I think I'm not sure who the other one is off the top of my head because I'm not sure of a lot of things off the top of my head. But yeah. So, yeah, cool stuff. Do enjoy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do gaming
Things.
streams for my second tier members as a thing. So if you do gaming, it might be something to consider, I guess. I don't know. That's what I do. Badges.
Yeah, it's an adventure. All right, let's continue with Dr. Frank here because my goodness, this is the longest opening ever, but there's a lot to say.
resulted by natural laws, like believing that the Library of Congress resulted from an explosion in a printing shop. See, I don't have enough faith to believe that. So
Straw
life
man.
appears to
Straw
be.
man's in chat.
It's so bad. Like I mentioned in a recent video that like this whole thing about, oh, the DNA is so, it'd fill an Encyclopedia Britannica. Right, but if you actually typed it out, let's go with Encyclopedia Britannica, 99 out of the 100 volumes are just pure gibberish. And it's only that last volume that has actual words in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's freaking crazy.
Ugh.
He designed. In fact, Antony Flew, who was a atheist, a very prominent atheist, but recently became a theist, or at least a deist, as a result of this evidence, said it is impossible for evolution to account for the fact that one single cell can carry more data than all the volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica put together. It now seems to me that the findings of more than 50 years of DNA research have provided materials for a new and enormously powerful argument from design. How am I doing on time, Dean?
So that's another weird one. Anthony Flew, of course, reached his 80s, started to have mental degradation, and just kept getting attacked by relentless theists. And I don't know whether he said exactly what Frank said, but it boils down to an argument from incredulity. But Flew's main point about the possibility of a deistic God is he turned agnostic-ish in his diminished mental capacity. It's just really hard to believe that all this happened by chance. And that's all it ever is.
And that's not his scientific opinion. That's just his personal opinion. Like, this is the thing. Like, you can't just say, this scientist said this thing. You really should be saying, hey, their research has shown this to be the case. All you're doing is making an argument from authority. Oh, this atheist scientist said this. Well, A, you're mischaracterizing them. B, it may just be a personal opinion of theirs. And C, you're not in any way showing that that is the case through science. You're just basically taking a quote from somebody and using it for your own purposes. Frank, you're frigging awful.
Yeah, I'd be very much. I wish they'd done that thing that they sometimes do with Hitchens debates, where they poll the audience at the beginning and then poll them again at the end to see if anybody's name changed. Or Jesus Christ. Anyone's opinion was moved.
Their stance, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that Frank Turek reminds me more of a used car salesman than an MBA. Like, seriously, like a business administrator. He really does remind me of a car salesman.
Yeah, like, believe me, you can fit so many universes in the trunk of this baby.
Yeah. And you know what? I was talking to this person the other day, and they said they fit 20 kids into this thing. Like that kind of rhetoric. It's just freaking stupid.
Yeah. And what's really upsetting is, as Dave points out, it's all for the grift. This man went from well off to very rich by being this bad. Like, we're all on the wrong team, folks. Yeah, Victoria, he's very emphatic with his bad arguments, and that's the thing, is like confidence. This man must be right because he's very confidently wrong. Ay. Oh well.
Design is so prevalent that even people like Francis Crick, the co-discoverer of DNA, Sir Fred Hoyle, who coined the term Big Bang in a derisive way, are now, or were, proponents of panspermia. Seeds everywhere, in other words, that life got deposited here by aliens, which is just kind of a backhanded way of saying that there's no way we know how life came by natural causes here. There must be aliens out there that brought it here, which of course just puts the question on one more step. Where did the aliens come from, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. See, I can't say specifically about Crick or any of the others, but I do know a lot of scientists bring up panspermia, not so much as a serious argument, but to say, here's another way things could have happened that actually fit within naturalistic terms and don't require a god. So, all other things being equal, there's still no reason to believe in your god. We still don't have to suspend the laws of physics for freaking magic to happen.
Well, it's addressing that dichotomy. It's either DNA formed naturally or it was a god, and that isn't the case, right? It can't be a dichotomy if I can give aliens, which isn't natural and isn't your god. So that's the only reason we bring it up. It's because you try to make this dichotomy out of it, which is a false dichotomy. But I don't believe it was aliens because there's no reason to. That the only reason preventing or seemingly preventing DNA from forming naturally is your incredulity. And that is not a good reason to say that we know it didn't form naturally. Is just, well, I'm incredulous about it. Okay, great.
Yeah, for sure. It's
And so
so
this is
as
getting into more shifting the burden of proof, because he's sort of saying, hey, well, it's complex. Prove it wasn't a god. Rather than saying, hey, yes, it's complex, but prove it was a god. You're just
mhm.
shifting the burden of proof again, Frank.
Yeah, just complexity alone doesn't do it. Especially when we don't have the level of complexity that Frank tries to make it out to be. He's being
Right,
dishonest about
right.
it, misleading
Yep.
people. As Dave points out, the ingredients for amino acids form in space. Asteroids, comets, we found entire
So,
nucleobases. It's just
well,
they're all over the place. So it
what
doesn't
we
necessarily
found,
mean they rain down from space. It means that the fact it's so easy for them to form, even in freaking space, means they absolutely could form here.
well, they may have had to form in space. Like, so what they found, it was the Japanese, they found a uracil, which is one of the key components of RNA,
Hmm.
not DNA, right? So uracil replaces thiamine in in RNA, whereas the thiamine is in DNA, right? So one of the key components for RNA was found along with I think it was it niacin, one of the like B3 kind of thing, like one of the constitutes for a vitamin kind of thing. So yeah, these components are being found, but what the paper said, and I'm really going from memory, so I do apologize if I'm butchering this a bit, but what I found was that they sort of said it is plausible, not that it happened, not that, you know, this is what we think happened, but it's plausible that the hot and cold cycles that require the chemical reactions could plausibly be caused by a rotation of the meteorite under the effect of the sun. Right,
Hmm.
so you need alternative hot and cooling, and sort of, so they said, oh, what caused the hot and cooling? Was it hydrothermal vents? Then how did it cool? Well, what if the meteorite is rotating, or the asteroid, I guess, at that point is rotating under the sun? Then you would get hot and cold cycles for these chains. So, um, interesting, fascinating, yes, and that I might add would be a form of panspermia, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, make it a comet. Then you've got frickin' water sublimating in the sunlight too to act as your solvent, so that the various molecules can do their
Sure,
dance. It's good
sure.
stuff. Yeah, chirality. That's another interesting one. So there's of course there's the problem of chirality. Why are all our proteins left-handed? I believe. Well, the simple answer is because our DNA is right-handed. The chirality of the protein mirrors the chirality of the DNA, which is made the same way every time. It could go the other way, but the duplication process is always handled by proteins, which have the reverse chirality. So it's a neat little loop that way.
Hmm.
Right? There's a lot more in the design argument, but I'm running out of time here. Let me just give you one quote from Chandra Wickramasinghe, who is a student of Sir
Yay,
Fred
more
Hoyle. He
quotes.
said, the emergence of life from a primordial soup on Earth is merely an article of faith. Sir Fred Hoyle said, a common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with
Why
physics as well as
primordial
chemistry
soup?
and biology.
Why primordial soup? There's lots of different hypotheses about abiogenesis. Why focus on primordial soup, which is one of the older ones, I might add.
In fairness, though, Fred Hoyle was most active around the 1940s and 50s. This was a student of Hoyle, so maybe we can push that back a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they were
That's
working
true.
in a time when they had the older model. But it's weird
Yeah.
that Frank brings up Hoyle and his acolytes because his earlier point was the Big Bang proves the universe had a beginning, and Hoyle, of course, notoriously refused to concede. He stuck with his steady state model all the
Yep.
way to the end of his life.
Yep. Refuse to concede that. And that's the thing. Like, and nobody in the field of abiogenesis is claiming to know what the actual model is. That's the whole point. That sort of, oh well, it's an article of faith. No, because they don't believe it on faith. They're basically making hypotheses that currently are up in the air. Like nobody said, hey, we understand it and have faith in that model. This is the weird thing. They want to conflate the faith somebody has that knows that their religion is true with a scientist saying, hey, this is the best hypothesis we have, but not committing to it as, yes, we know this for sure. The two things are not even in the same ballpark. So there's a number of hypotheses like thermal vents, like primordial soup. Okay, it's an older one. Maybe there's a few people that still believe in it. There's amyloid world. There's RNA world. There's a ton of different hypotheses, and no one's saying, "Hey, I have faith in hydrothermal vents. I have faith in that." No scientist is saying that. So you're an idiot. Yeah, what a moron. Like, seriously. They're not even in the same ballpark.
I honestly sometimes I can't tell if he truly misunderstands his arguments this badly, or he says, "Oh, these arguments will be convincing enough to enough people. It doesn't matter if they're correct."
Yeah.
It just, yeah. How exactly did we stop laughing long enough to destroy and debunk Frank? But yeah, why is it that apologists hold science to be so powerful when it doesn't give us answers, but so weak when it debunks their myth? Whoops. And Vestas says there's an interesting recent study on magnetism that addresses chirality. That sounds fun. I'll have to try to find that. Yeah. Come on, Frank.
Biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. So cosmological argument, teleological argument. Now let's move on to the moral argument. If there is no God, you can't say that decapitating a man on a bus is objectively morally wrong.
There we go. I predicted this at the start of the chat. I said he'd do this. Argument from consequences. Oh, well, it's not objectively moral. Like, just because you want there to be objective morals doesn't mean there are. You're basically saying, wouldn't it be nicer if there was this thing? Sure, it'd be nicer if I had $1 million. It doesn't make it true, Frank.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one of the easiest arguments to debunk, because if Frank is right and there's a moral lawgiver, then there's still no objective morality. We've just shifted the subject from ourselves to that being.
Correct.
It's that guy's whim, which is why all the horrors in the Bible are morally right, because you're obeying the origin of morality. You're doing what he says, even though those things are clearly wrong by any metric we mortal.
Uh-oh.
Oh?
Uh-oh. The devil got Ember. Ah, you're back. You've returned from interwebs hell.
Oh, did I disappear?
Was that just me? I
don't know. I heard you saying uh-oh, and I'm like, what?
Oh.
What's happening?
It sort of it froze for me. It could have just been me, though. I do apologize if that's not that didn't happen. Like, you just froze for a bit.
I mean, I can't rule it out. I do.
Yeah.
No, I was just messing with you.
Oh no. That's all right. I'll take over your show without you. I mean, I've already stolen your chat. I'll steal the show.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Mark's gonna take over, guys. I'll see y'all.
so, yeah, so yeah, like Big Frankie here is yeah, so this whole idea, it just seems to me to be just wishful thinking. Oh, if there is a God, then there's a heaven. Well, that's great, but how? Like, I'd rather. And what amazed me, I had a conversation with a Christian called Christian the other day, um, who was he didn't seem to care, at least to my perspective, he didn't seem to care whether something was true or not. He seemed to care what the outcomes, what the consequences were. So wouldn't it be nice if there was an afterlife? Well, is there? Isn't the important question whether that is true or not, rather than wouldn't it be nice? And I also have to add that even if there is an objective morality, Frank doesn't have access to it. Nobody has access to it, because you rely on a book written by people and interpreted by people to give you that morality. So even if there is some sort of objective morality, you still don't have access to it. And yeah.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, they're all bad arguments, but this is arguably
Oh yeah.
one of them the most weakest. Like, it's weaker, but I don't know. So Monk says that he greatly enjoyed your conversation. Christian got him all wound up.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed the conversation. It was just kind of, while I was in it, it was kind of odd. Like, sort of, I'm talking about truth as in that which, comports or aligns with reality, and he's talking about truth as in what you get from something. It's a very weird idea of what truth is. I found it very strange. But it was an interesting conversation. It certainly was.
That reminds me of a fact that a quote I was recently reminded of. It's from Don Quixote. It's don't let facts get in the way of truth, which is, I love that quote, and I'm glad I was reminded of it, because it kind of cuts both ways. Like, if you define truth as something other than fact, then fact is always going to be in the way of it,
Right.
That's just your opinion. As Dostoevsky said, if there is no God, everything is permitted. Now, I want to be very clear here.
And obviously
Thanks,
not.
Jordan Peterson.
Right? Like, no, if you start decapitating people on buses, you're going to be objectively subjected to our criminal justice system.
Yeah. Your jail cell will feel very objective to you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that atheists can't know morality, they do. I'm not saying that atheists can't be moral, they can. I'm not saying that believing in God makes you more moral, as Christopher has pointed out, and as I say, I agree with much of what he writes here. I'm not saying that religious people are necessarily better than atheists. That's not the argument. The argument is that there's no way to say that a given act is moral or immoral unless there's a standard beyond humanity.
Nope. Try again, Frank. Nope. Like, whether you believe the anthropological idea that humans have, evolved morality because we're a social species, things like that, we still can collectively decide certain things are wrong. And that's why we have laws, because we did decide certain things were wrong. Like, you can have right and wrong. We literally did that. It has been shown. Hello, Bree. Good to see ya.
Bree.
Yeah, and also, I love this point, but I'm constantly, my brain gets all frazzled. According to the Christian Bible, there is no wrong. There is nothing that's unforgivable. You can do anything, and just say, I'm sorry, Sky Daddy, and you're off the hook. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. It's not just my opinion, it's not just Christopher's opinion, or Mother Teresa's or Hitler's. There's a standard beyond everybody that defines what is right. That standard is God's very nature. Since objective moral laws exist, there must be an objective moral lawgiver. You say, no, there doesn't need to be any moral lawgiver. If there's a prescription, there must be a prescriber. If you go to the pharmacist and say, here, I'd like you to fill this prescription, and the pharmacist says, who prescribed it? And you go, nobody. Are you going to get your prescription? No. Now, there's a lot.
Category error, false analogy. There's probably other things like.
Yeah. What a dumbass argument.
I'll give Turek this. He's one of the best at playing Jenga with fallacies. He just stacks them right up.
A lot more on the moral argument. Maybe we can talk.
He's trying to say that sort of morals are prescriptive kind of thing. And I suppose in a way that they are. But, you know, who gave you these morals? We did. We gave them to ourselves in order to make our society work. There's your answer. Like, you're assuming that doesn't work, or it isn't. Like, it's kind of, it reminds me of William Lane Craig, who says, oh, without objective morals, it's not really moral. It's like, well, then you're just changing what moral means. Mm-hmm. You know, you know, you can't have real morals without objective morality. What do you mean by real morals? Like,
yeah, it's just your opinion, Dan. It's like, no, it's not just my opinion or Mother Teresa's opinion or whatever. Like,
yeah,
we do things by consensus. You know, we talk to each other. We're like, hey, what do you think about this killing babies for fun thing? Maybe not. Maybe we should put the kibosh on that, right? And so we all agree. And then we decide this is a wrong thing, and then tack punishments on and things. Hello, Nidhi. Good to see ya. It's just, blah, 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 blah. Oh, another good point. If God is mindless, then objective morality from a God is consistent. So, Frank's argument is awful for his God, but it kind of aims towards a deistic God. A little bit.
I don't think I could really say that something that is mindless would fit the definition of a God. I would expect God to have some sort of agency, some sort of will in some way to make decisions or to make choices. And to do that, you kind of need a mind of some sort. I don't know how, like, you could label something as mindless, which is then not an agent, as a god. I think that would be sort of definitionally a necessity.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the old Greek-style gods. Like, you don't have to be eternal and all-powerful and all of this crap. You're just supernatural, but still able to die, still full of flaws, still full of, you know, corruption, and basically you're just a superhuman. But that's a god. Like, those gods, we'd have a much harder time dispelling, but we'd also expect to see evidence from them in the world. Hello, Titan. I told you Titan would be by. I am a prophet! Gur declared it earlier on another stream. Gurmania said that I was a prophet, so yeah.
But Gur says a lot of stupid stuff, so, you know,
that's fair.
Yeah, that is fair.
Yeah, why is it always killing babies for fun? When do we kill babies, you know, just because God said so, not because it's for fun? Like, ay. Oh, it was a joke. What was it? It was a joke.
The if God was mindless kind of thing. So I'm overanalyzing a joke as per usual.
Oh,
you'll get
okay,
used to me
okay.
overanalyzing. I think it's a you know, an aside. That's okay. I get you. It's just, yeah.
Okay, it doesn't always show up in text. I mean, I've been known to overanalyze things too.
I've heard it argued before as well that because it's God's nature and rather what he decides, then it's objective that way. And I think that's got a bit of problems to it, but it's more solid than saying it's sort of God's. Anyway, we're getting into the morality thing. It's going to go on forever. So let's just keep going. And
yeah, Frank's got to be near to the end of his thing.
Frank's loaded diaper here.
I know. Then hopefully we can at least, you know, Hitchens will be faster because there's less to complain about. But so hopefully we'll at least clear the opening statements in this review.
Yeah.
Talk about a little bit during the Q&A. But what can we learn from these three arguments for God? We can learn from the cosmological argument that this being must be spaceless, timeless, and immaterial. Why? Because it created space, time, and material. It must also be powerful. Why? Because it created out of nothing. It must be personal. Why? Because you can't go from a state of non-existence to a state of existence without making a choice, and only personal beings make choices.
How do you make choices when there's no time, Frank? How is there before a choice and after a choice when there's no time? How, if you're immaterial, do you cause a thing to happen? How do you get a mind without a body? Can you demonstrate that? Even an AI needs to be in computer hardware.
Yeah.
There's a lot there that I take issue with.
Yeah, and these are the things that William Lane Craig stacked up that I don't agree with. I think he's overreaching in a big way, just sort of saying, hey, it's spaceless, timeless, immaterial, and, personal kind of thing. Like, he just tacks that on the end.
Yeah, he just talks fast and confidently.
Right, you can just have events that happen that aren't a choice. It's determined. It's a natural thing that's determined. How do you know it's a choice? How do you know that a being was involved at all? Something can be powerful without being an agent, something making a choice.
It's true.
So this whole idea that it's spaceless, timeless, personal, etc., it's tacked on the end, assuming that it is an agent doing it. And you've got no grounds to say that it's an agent. And I even have issue with the powerful thing, because the causes of events don't necessarily have to be more powerful than the event itself. Like, if you light up something on dynamite, a spark can cause it to explode. The cause is a lot less powerful than the effect. So, this whole idea is just it's stupid on so many levels. Like, yeah, I get that you could make that argument and say, hey, I believe it to be spaceless, timeless, etc., for all these things, but you haven't demonstrated that. You've just asserted it. There's no reason to believe that it's spaceless, timeless, immaterial, etc.
Yeah, that powerful thing, that's a play off of an old C.S. Lewis argument that everything that comes to exist has to be caused by something greater than it. Like a pair of adult humans creates a baby. A full-grown oak tree creates an acorn. A full-grown chicken lays an egg, but that doesn't hold up for a lot of reasons that I'm not even going to get into, because it's a whole other detour of time. But yeah, I don't even know if any of his arguments are original. He's parroting other apologists.
William Lane Craig, yeah. A lot of William Lane Craig, some stuff off of look, and the whole idea of using the word powerful and greatness in sort of talking about events in physics. Like, you don't hear physicists say, hey, what was the greatness of the interaction? Like, that isn't how we measure these things. Like, you're just using adjectives that don't have, like, when we're talking about things, we want to be precise and say, hey, this force had X amount of newtons, kind of thing, right? That's how we talk about these things. When you're talking about greatness, it's this real nebulous concept that doesn't really explain anything.
Yeah, what is great? How do we measure it? How do we quantify it? How do we test it? Just especially in the context of this nothing that I love that everybody seems to be pointing out that saying it's spaceless, timeless, and immaterial, you may as well say does not exist. And I've mentioned that before myself, that, like, if you're going to make the argument, I think it was a Ray Comfort video, if it exists outside the universe, where all of existence is, then you're definitionally saying does not exist.
Right.
So that's not helpful.
Impersonal forces do not. It must be intelligent. Why? Because it created in such a highly designed, razor's edge way. It must be moral. Why? Due to the moral argument, and of course it must be a creator. These attributes are the attributes of what the Bible would call God.
No. Frank hasn't read his Bible, because that's not what the Bible says. He's ascribing a definition and meaning to his own concepts. Like, if we look at the God in the Bible, first of all, not the only God. Second of all, clearly not omnipotent. I mean, intelligent. Are you kidding me? He put the frickin' fruit of knowledge in the same garden as Adam and Eve, and trusted.
Yeah.
There's so much. There's so many
And
times.
at one point, he goes into the garden and questions, "Where are you, Adam?"
Yeah,
Like, that is not an omniscient God. I'm sorry, it's just not.
yeah. I mean, we don't even need omniscience. Like, as many of you know, I'm on Aaron Ra's show doing Blasphemers Bible. We're reading the Bible all the way through, and we just started Leviticus a couple sessions ago. Throughout all of Exodus, Yahweh is constantly, those people pissed me off, I'm going to smite them. And Moses has to tell God, Yahweh, that's a bad idea. Think of the consequences of your actions. Maybe you shouldn't do that. And so, he keeps doing dumb things, and fucking Moses has to correct him. Intelligent. Get out of here, Frank.
But it's kind of the way that it's written. It's like Moses keeps fooling him, kind of thing. Like, keeps sort of convincing him in a really weird way. Like, you take the story of Lot and his wife, and God wants to smite the entire city. And he says, "Well, don't smite everybody." And then he negotiates God down to finding one good person. And all right, he didn't find him, but he just conned God down from everybody. Like, everybody has to be good to one good person. Like, it's so weird. He's not particularly bright. Like,
easy to fool, easy to trick, if fucking mortals can boss him around. I don't know. I could go on for a while.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Let me sum up what agnostic astronomer Robert Jastrow said after going through evidence like this. He said, for the scientist who has lived by his faith in the power of reason, remember, he's the agnostic, the story ends like a bad dream. He has scaled the mountains of ignorance. He's about to conquer the highest peak. As he pulls himself over the final rock, he's greeted by a band of theologians who've been sitting there for centuries. 2 more minutes? Take 3. Thank you, sir. Those are the 3 main arguments. Now I'd like to say there's 4 additional truths about the universe that are better explained by theism than by atheism. First of all, reason and the laws of logic. Christopher is a self-described materialist, but if atheism is true, we have no grounds to know it because reason and thoughts are just chemical reactions in the brain.
Yeah. Like, what are you trying to say, Frank? Are you being incredulous, or are you going to posit an alternative that we can then test and demonstrate is what's going on or not? Like, we know our thoughts are electrochemical interactions in the brain. There's chemicals in the neurotransmitters, but there's also the brain waves, We know that. We can see it. We can test it. We can tell when a person's thinking. We can tell what region. Once we map out their brain, we can generally tell what vague subject they're thinking about. Like, if they're remembering a dance they attended, then the music side will light up, and all sorts of interest. We can see how thinking works. We can test it. Yeah. For fuck's sake, Frank, if you're gonna post something else, then you got to give us a mechanism.
How can you have, even Einstein believed this. Einstein was a determinist. How can you trust what Christopher says if it's just chemical reactions going on in his brain and chemical reactions in our brain?
Why would we not trust chemical reactions? Unlike theistic claims, they work out the same every time. If you take equal parts baking soda and vinegar, you're going to get a neutralization reaction. Every single time. You can trust that.
And does this appeal to consequences as well? Wouldn't it be better to believe that it's this supernatural thing going on than chemical reactions? Well, just because you want that to be the case doesn't make it so. Like, this is what I'm talking about, this wishful thinking of, oh, well, if you're right, it's chemical reactions that are deciding everything. Yes, and? Like, it doesn't matter whether you don't want that to be true or whether you want something else to be true. It makes no difference whatsoever. Reality doesn't care about your feelings, Frank. It just doesn't care.
Yeah, and the fact, Matt Dillahunty frequently says something along the same lines. Like, I can pick up this pen. It might write. It might not. We don't know. But here's the thing. I can test it and find out. But more importantly, every time I've used it in the past, it has been reliable. Now, of course, human brains, the very fact Frank is making these arguments tonight show that human rationality is not 100% reliable.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a rational argument by any stretch of the
Results
imagination.
may vary. Yeah.
Yeah. But the fact that he can do it, and other people can do it, that science has worked, that we've discovered so much about science, it's that whole reliability based on repeatable results. The sun is just chemicals. We don't know with absolute certainty it's going to rise in the morning, but repeatable experience has shown it's relatively reliable.
Yeah.
See, chemicals don't reason, they react. Now, I'm not saying there's no connection between our thinking and chemicals. There is. But if it's nothing but chemicals, how can we trust them? Even Darwin recognized this. It's called Darwin's doubt. He said, if we are just the product materially of primates, why should I even trust anything, much less my theory of natural selection?
Yeah, that's another one. I believe he's stealing out of Behe's book on this one, Darwin's Black Box.
Yes, he is. Yep.
Oh, is it bad that we can not only identify when Frank is stealing stuff, but we can usually just know where he stole it from?
The person he's stealing it, yeah. Well, I think it was Meyer, Stephen C. Meyer that wrote Darwin's Doubt. That was the book that was written. But
okay.
I think it was, yeah, I think Behe did something similar, but I think he's stealing from Stephen C. Meyer.
Oh, yeah. Behe was Darwin's Black
Behe.
Box. But yeah, Meyer is same group, Discovery Institute, and they're very hyper-focused on Darwin. And they do it by taking out-of-context quotes from Origin of Species. Like, Darwin had a lot of doubts that he wrote about. He said, if I'm wrong, this is how we'll show it. And then we did the thing, and it confirmed him instead. Like, that's just the way Darwin wrote.
These are the same idiots that took that thing about the eye from Darwin and paraded it around for years and years and years. They're the same people. And then when, people picked up on it and said, hey, he actually said it's anti-intuitive, but he's not saying it's wrong, right? They put the eyeball one aside for the moment and then moved on to another one. They're exactly the same people. But they don't admit when they're wrong. That's the problem. This is the problem with faith. You never have to admit being wrong.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm I'm a little slow on switching things around, but
that's okay.
Since we're talking about rainbows, I'll get out my rainbow here for a second. I'll pull Frank off the screen so we can see it better. I don't get to use my rainbow often enough. It's fabulous.
Fabulous.
It makes me feel fabulous.
The next major reason is the laws of mathematics. Science depends on the notion that the universe is rational and mathematical at all levels. But how does rationality and mathematics arise from randomness? How do they come from matter? Rationality and mathematics are the product of mind, not matter.
How do you... Your brain is made of meat, Frank. How does meat process information? How does your meat chest pump blood around your body? How does it know to maintain the oxygenation levels in your blood? And how does your digestive system know? It's all just chemicals, Frank. How does it know what nutrients to extract from the food you take in and where to send it? How can you trust any of this, Frank? It's all just meat.
Plus, mathematics is just descriptive. We're just describing things. It's a language to describe with. It's not something inherent to the universe itself. Come on, Frank. This is not hard. Like,
I don't think he even believed this one. He's trying to appeal to the audience. I hope Christopher... I don't think we're going to have time to get to the rebuttals, but I really hope when we do get to the rebuttals that Christopher just shreds him on this nonsense.
Yeah.
So you got reason in the laws of logic, the laws of mathematics, and then number 7, or 7 in my list here, 3 in the addition, human freedom and the ability to make choices. Christopher is somebody who's very concerned about human freedom as I am. But again, if we are just molecules in motion, how do we have human freedom? William Provine from Cornell He's a materialist.
Maybe we don't. Maybe we're
Maybe
Spinoza's
we don't.
stone, who thinks that it's in control of its own trajectory, but has actually been tossed. Like, free will is really only a problem for theists, because they need free will as an excuse so that all the horrible things in the world aren't necessarily God's fault. I see a Kata. Hello, Kata.
Catbug.
Yee. Stay hydrated. Oh, goodness. There's so many. Yeah, fallacy of composition. That's another one that I keep forgetting to mention.
Division fallacy, yes.
90% of apologetics say shiz confidently to people with lower education and gish them into belief. It can't possibly be anything else.
Well, this is really scattershot. It really is scattershot. And usually when they're saying, hey, I have 7 proofs and, 5 demonstrate, it usually is this kind of scattershot all around the place.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of a thing shortly after Einstein published General Relativity. 100 scientists got together and wrote letter after letter after letter explaining how Einstein was wrong. And when a newspaper person asked Einstein about it, what does he think? He said, really, 100 of them. Well, if any of them were correct, one would have been sufficient. It's the same sort of thing. The fact that you need 7 different arguments means you don't have one that actually demonstrates what you're trying to show. If you did, you'd just use that, and that'd be an open and shut case.
Yeah. Or you'd pick a few of the best ones, kind of thing. But he's trying to shove the entirety of Christian philosophy over the last 2,000 years into 5 minutes, and it's ridiculous. It is sort of a scattergun approach. Just fill the room with enough bullshit, and they can't clean everything up. That's essentially what he's doing.
Yeah. It's a gish light, I suppose.
Materialist, a Darwinist, he points out that we don't have any human freedom if all we are is molecules in motion. Now, Christopher ought not scold anybody for being a snake-handling, Bible-thumping, fundamentalist preacher, because according to his own worldview, that person is that way because these are just chemicals going on in his brain.
According to Frank's worldview, that person is that way because God made them that way. And also, that's a straw man of Christopher's view, but details.
Yeah. Sure.
Neither could you say that Hitler had done anything wrong if it's just chemicals going on in his brain. I mean, what is the murder molecule? How much does justice weigh? These are questions that have no answer in a materialistic worldview.
They're not materialist questions. They're
legal questions.
Yeah. These are all, they're like multiple layers of philosophy down.
That's bad. That's really bad. What's the murder molecule? You're the one claiming that these moral things are objective, Frank. Like, if to a subjective person, we can say, hey, it's a social construct. It doesn't weigh anything. It's an abstract. It's not really real. And I'm sorry you have a problem with that, but that doesn't mean that it's not useful. Yeah, Godwin's law. Yeah. Godwin's law.
I have coffee, but, I need it. We'll go with it. It's just, oh my goodness. Let's see. Kin says Adam and Eve are not real, therefore we're not fallen, because there's no original sin, no need for vicarious redemption, and no need for a Jesus. That's I've had similar thoughts in the past. Let's see if I can remember how it goes. So, eating of the fruit gave humans knowledge of good and evil, but that wasn't actually the sin. The sin was disobeying God.
Right.
So if God hadn't put the thing on the fruit, then the knowledge of good and evil wouldn't be a problem. So knowledge of good and evil is tied to the original sin, but it's not the same thing. So the fact that people possess knowledge of good and evil means they also possess original sin, which means Frank's moral argument needs to be inverted. The fact that he can tell good from evil means that he, according to his mythology, means he inherited that ability from people who took it against God's will. Morality cannot come from God because humans took it in defiance of God's will.
Right.
So, you know, what now, Frank? There's more to it, but I I don't want to go on a big tangent this late in the game. Another one, anyway.
But that is Christopher's worldview. It seems to me that it makes much more sense to say that reason and laws of logic, mathematics, and human freedom come from a great mind that granted us these immaterial realities. The final argument is consciousness. Do you know that a heap of sand and a human brain have the same elements? Why are some carbon...
No, they do not. There are some elements in a heap of sand that are also in a human brain, but they're not the same composition by any stretch of the imagination, let alone the order of them. It just, oh my goodness.
And this is 100% a composition fallacy, the composition division, where you're basically assigning the attributes of something to the elements, the divisions of it. You're saying, hey, because that applies to the smaller thing, that applies to the whole. So because sand has a certain division and the brain has a certain division, then they must be this. No, that's not how that works, Frank. Not how that works.
Yeah, I don't know. I just want to facepalm.
Yeah. It's like saying that water must be a gas because it's made of hydrogen and oxygen. You know, like, no, it's the combination of how they're combined, and that gives emergent properties to whatever it is that you're talking about. You are making an absolute fallacy.
Yeah. Oh, I love emergent properties. They're my favorite thing. So that's, I don't know. There's another thing I want to say, but it's only vaguely relevant, and I'm like
if you put chlorine and I think the nitrogen together, you get sort of salt kind of thing, and both of them are awful by themselves. You know, like.
Yeah, it's potassium, NaCl.
Yes, potassium. Yep.
Yeah. Ha! I remembered something. My brain apparently isn't entirely made of silicon.
Apparently mine is, so great. Apparently Frank's is.
That's a distinct possibility. I mean, he does believe that humans were created from freaking dirt and just, you know, poofed into being. So yeah, it makes sense that his brain would be made of silicon.
Carbon-based molecules conscious and others are not. Materialists have no answer for this. Daniel Dennett, another person who would agree with Christopher on many things, is a materialist, says that consciousness is an illusion because he's a materialist. You're not really witnessing this right now. It's just an illusion. Now, one wonders if he was conscious when he wrote this.
Sigh.
Why do I feel like he's quote mined Daniel Dennett in some way?
I suspect he has. Like, he probably said something along the lines of consciousness is an illusion in that it is an emergent property. There is no consciousness center in the brain. It's just a thing that happens as a result of the total function of the brain. And Frank just took that first part and went, oh, consciousness is an illusion. Like, come on, man. Come on. Yeah, water and acid are both liquid, therefore safe to drink. Yep. Pile of screws and nails have some elements, but the one is put together in such a way that it keeps time. It's a watch thing, I think. Maybe. I don't know. My brain isn't quite as with it as I would have hoped. A little silicon in there.
But again, there is no explanation for this in an atheistic worldview. Now, I have a...
Fuck you, Frank. There sure is.
A couple other arguments on the bench, but I don't have time to get to them. Let me just sum up in 1 minute. We need to take all this data in context, not just one argument, but all of them. What is the best explanation? Christopher has to explain these 8 truths about the universe from an atheistic perspective. He must explain how the universe arose from nothing.
Yeah, here's the scattergun tactic.
Yep.
You have to explain how all of them don't work. Like, instead of me showing some evidence for a god, I'm going to throw out these loose arguments, and you've got to explain how, sort of, how to refute every single... He's a shocker. He's an absolute shocker. I really dislike Frank Turek. He's an absolute nightmare.
Mm-hmm. It's a shifting burden, moving goalposts, like, and almost anything. I mean, fuck, half of this stuff is Black Swan. I have never seen it, therefore it can't happen without a god to do it,
right,
you know?
Right.
Just my fucking goodness. No, Christopher doesn't have to do anything. Christopher only has to get up here and be like, I'm not convinced. Show me, show me something.
Yep.
For fuck's sake. Fine-tuning and design arose from chaos, how life arose from non-life, how morality arose from materials, how reason and the laws of logic arose from matter, how mind arose from mud, how mathematics arose from molecules, how human freedom arose from blind repetitive forces, and how consciousness arose from chemicals. If he can't give evidence to explain these truths about reality from an atheistic perspective, if he's just going to state unsupported, speculative possibilities that rely on faith, then I think theism is a more reasonable worldview.
If you can't answer everything, if you can't answer everything, then I win by default. It's like Christopher could get up there and be like, you know what, Frank? I concede every single one of those things. They're all highly improbable. Now show me how we get from there to your God.
Right.
Like, come on now.
It's a god of the gaps. It's like, if you can't show how abiogenesis works, then it has to have been a god.
Fuck yeah, Kata. Ooh yeah. Yeah, we should. He should get his own. Actually, I think Nitty gave him his own version of it. I think he called it the Turek Trot, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh, I was just about to write that. I don't know if maybe I'm sort of subconsciously got that from Nitty, but yeah, the Turek Trot sounds good.
Yep.
The Turek Tango.
Yeah. Yep. Explain all of science, Christopher. We'll wait.
Yeah.
I think it was you who coined, maybe not coined, but I heard Turek Trot from. But maybe my silicon brain is misremembering, and it was someone else, and it just.
I definitely coined the Hove and Hustle. I'm really proud of that one. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, and I think that's so appropriate for that man.
Oh, for sure. That guy. We should get these two together, Frank and Kent, and have them debate over who's more rightist.
Oh wow! I think the room would implode from the massive egos. Quite frankly, danger of creating an ego black hole that would never escape from.
Well, I mean, there are worse ways to go, or maybe not. Maybe not.
Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
He's done!
I don't appreciate it. I appreciate very little of that, Frank. I feel like Hitchens smells blood in the water, though. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, he's sitting there going, "What am I supposed to do with this? Like, knock it all down." I'm imagining how Dillahunty would react to this kind of thing, because you know how Matt likes to attack every single argument. So he'd open with, "Here's why I don't have to do any of the things he just said. Now here's my answer to every single thing he just said."
Right. I really hope so. And I'm sure I saw this back in the day, but it was probably like over a decade ago or so I don't remember it that well.
Yeah, I mean, this is 12 years old. It's it's an oof. But yeah, That makes me think of what Eric Hovind would do in this case. He'd be like, how can you be sure of anything? I can be sure because, my God, I know a guy who knows everything, you know? Well, how do you know if you're being lied to then? Since you only have that source's word to go on. Just for fuck's sake. For fuck's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you, Kata. Munch the button. And also, if you're new here, please do hit that subscribe button. We have more goodies like this. And, subscribe to Mark's channel, too. That's linked in the description. Because we alternate. Every week we're on each other's channel. So if you want to catch the next installment, we'll be over there next time. Yeah, it's good stuff. We enjoy doing these anyway. And hopefully you guys enjoy participating, partaking, hanging out with us. All those fun things. Okay, let's get to Mr. Hitchens so we can hopefully at least get to a good stopping point. Now, a quick reminder, this is Hitchens' opening statement, so he won't be actually responding to Frank, he's just laying out his own case.
Thank you, Dr. Turek. We'll now have 20 minutes from Mr. Hitchens at his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. Thank you, Dr. Turek, for that very spirited opening to the evening. I should say first it's a great honor to be in the capital of the great state of Virginia. I'm in a small way a biographer of Thomas Jefferson, and his memorial, as you know, omitted the mention of his presidencies and vice presidencies and preferred to focus on his work at the university and his authorship of the Virginia Statute on Religious Freedom, which is the embryo and basis of the First Amendment to our Constitution, which makes this the only country in the world that has ever decided that God and constitutional matters should be separated. And it's in defense partly of that civilizational impulse that I rise this evening to satirize the idea that we're here by somebody else's permission and owe that person an explanation, which is what it is to be a theist, if not a deist at any rate.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that while Thomas Jefferson did do a lot of stuff, like help set up the Virginia Commonwealth and things like that, when he was sworn in as president, he swore in on a book of laws, not the Bible. He's rather famous for that fact, that he was much more secular, openly secular. Like a lot of people say, oh, no atheist could ever achieve public office in the United States. Now, I'm not saying Jefferson was an atheist, but he definitely leaned very heavily towards secularism.
Yeah.
Like, my religion shouldn't be how we rule this country kind of thing.
Yeah.
I almost never watch television, and I'm usually glad that I do, but now I'm glad that I'm forced by my daughter to watch Family Guy. Because you may possibly have seen the moment when the chubby father comes down in the morning and looks at his cereal in the bowl, accepting one of your more sophisticated challenges, sir. And he says, look at this. He says, woo, 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 woo. And his daughter says, those are Cheerios, Dad.
That's pretty much on par with Frank's argument. And this is what I
love how
about
he
Hitchens.
slapped him as well. Like, that's one of your more sophisticated arguments. It's like, whoa. I mean, he's not wrong. They were very unsophisticated.
Yep. That's it's so everybody loves the Hitch slap. And he just right off the bat, he's not even in his responses yet. He's just like, hey, here we go.
But I accept the ontological challenge, and I accept it in this way. The answer to the question with which we confront ourselves tonight, or are confronted if you prefer, does God exist, is to me, yes, it does. It must do. It must do because it is so real to those who do believe in it. There are people of whom it may be said that for them, God does exist. I've become perfectly persuaded of this by now.
That is an interesting strategy. Start off as an atheist by conceding. For certain values of exist, God does exist. There are people who believe in him. Now, as some of you may know, I'm a minister, Universal Life Church, and one of the tenets of the Universal Life Church is the reason they're a universal church is because they believe that if a person believes in something strongly enough, that they're devoted to it, they bother to worship, they bother to go through the ceremonies and so on, then it's real to them. So, you know, I've performed a Muslim wedding ceremony, I've performed Christian wedding ceremonies, I've performed nun wedding ceremonies. And it's fantastic. I love them because it's about love, it's about the celebration of the people and the community around them. It's fucking fantastic, and I wish I could do more of them. But the point is that to those people, as a concept, as a part of their lives, these things are real. But it's really interesting to see Christopher take this tactic right off the bat.
There is no form of persuasion that would make me assent to this proposition. Some of us are born, we're born too, in answer to Blaise Pascal's own problem, the one that made him write his Pensées and address them to those who are so made that they cannot believe. Those of us to whom almost everything that Dr. Turek just said would be the mere equivalent of white noise. I suppose it's my job this evening to explain ontologically how that is the case. Perhaps I'll do it by force of example. Recently, very recently, in fact, as little ago in time as last year, the Vatican announced that limbo, the destination of the unbaptized child soul, no longer exists. There is no such place. St. Augustine was in error, it appears, in sending so
Augustine made mistakes. That never happens.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So for anybody not familiar,
The founding church fathers got it wrong.
yeah.
How?
Saint Augustine was a 3rd century classically trained master of rhetoric. He would be a PhD level rhetorician in today's world, and he's the dude responsible for combing through the Bible and putting in all those useful little things that twist the emotional screws, like Jesus died for you. He didn't just die to wipe out sin. He died for you, so you should feel guilty. That's St. Augustine's work. The limbo thing, I did not know came from him, though, and that's fascinating. I also enjoyed it when the Catholic Church accepted evolution was a thing.
so many children, at least the souls of so many unbaptized children, to this destination for so long. Among the comments that I heard about this, among the mildest, actually, was that of a woman raised in the Catholic faith, whose child had died before baptism could take place, who had for many years believed that that's where her unbaptized child had gone. And she said, they can't tell me that place doesn't exist. It's been as real to me as anything possibly could be for so long. They've no right to tell me now that this no longer exists. Ontologically, limbo exists for those who believe in it, just as God does. I'm not here to deny that. It's only a few decades now since the rival church, Church of Rome, the Church of England, announced that really no one actually goes to hell. It could be that after you die you're forbidden God's grace, but there's no real place of eternal, unending, infinite torture and torment with which those who claimed the grace of God and the redemption of Jesus made a living for so many years. And how do they make their living? By lying to children. Think of it. Hundreds and hundreds of years of people proudly earning their keep by lying to children and terrifying them.
And let's not forget the selling of indulgences and, of course, the giant elephant in the room actually hurting children.
Yes.
And then shuffling the priests around to, keep it from ever... Oh, you can't ever tell because it would hurt the church. Well, I mean, if the church isn't doing anything about it, maybe the church deserves it.
Yeah,
because
maybe that organizational structure needs to have a few changes in it if that's how you deal with such a heinous offense. But I get what he's saying. He's sort of saying, hey, that the church felt you taught all of this stuff as it was fact, and people believed it as fact, and in one signing of a pen, that reality was changed to something else.
Mm-hmm.
How is that even possible?
That's not a new thing with the church either, because I'm reminded of that line from the Da Vinci Code, which, granted, that's a work of fiction, but many of the things referenced in it, like the canonical councils, those were real historical events. Yeah. And Magneto's character wasn't wrong. For half of Christianity, Jesus was mortal one day and divine the next by the stroke of someone else's pen.
Yeah.
And
not only that, sort of according to the church doctrine, for centuries, evolution wasn't a thing. And then suddenly it was. Suddenly it was that God created us as we are kind of thing. And then God took a back step and just sort of, made us evolve, like set up this process. And it's been going this way for ages. They're taking back steps everywhere and saying, well, now, since the scientific light of this has come to light, we're going to say this other thing instead. It's very, very weird. Look, I've never seen the film. I've only read the book, The Da Vinci Code. I don't even remember that much of it. Like Dan Brown, his writing is like popcorn. It's easy to digest and sort of, once you're through it, you kind of just forget about it, kind of thing. It's they're great books if you don't feel like anything intelligent, but
Well, ironically, it was the prequel to Da Vinci Code that caught me. It was Angels and Demons, because it starts out at CERN and talking about antimatter, and I'm like, oh, tell me more, The codes and art and things, those are all lovely and fascinating, but it's just a thriller story. But yeah, anyway.
Saying that because they could do that, they were morally superior to us. Reason, common sense, decency, ordinary decency rebels against this kind of mind-forged manacle, however charmingly or humorously it's expressed. But hell exists in the minds of several people I've spoken to just today on this campus in the intervals of other conversations. For them, it's real, and I don't say that it's not. But what I want to show is that it can, if it does exist, nonetheless be abolished, like many other mind-forged manacles and man-made tyrannies that confront us. And in fact...
Like, another thing the Catholic Church that got big mad about, heliocentric solar system. That's what Galileo was imprisoned over, showing through his telescope the moons of Jupiter orbited Jupiter. The Church, you can't say that there's things that don't orbit the Earth directly.
Right.
That's not kosher, or whatever the Catholic version of kosher is,
I kind of love how he sort of like coped with them, though. He kind of said, oh no, of course not. Yeah, I'd never say anything like that, and then just went on to say it anyway, kind of thing. Like he had a very laissez-faire kind of attitude towards it, which was great. But I think the original person that suggested that a heliocentric model was burned at the stake.
Bruno, I believe.
Bruno, yes, yeah.
Yeah, because well, it wasn't the only thing he did. He did some other heresies as well, and he got people all big worked up. And then he refused to back down because he had integrity, which is commendable, but it also got him killed. But don't blame the victim. It's the church that did it,
Yeah, well, Galileo really just backed down and then continued to say it anyway, kind of thing. He was a bit funny in that way.
Yeah, he's like, I got shit to do, guys.
Yep.
That this belief in a supreme and unalterable tyranny is the oldest enemy of our species, the oldest enemy of our intellectual freedom and our moral autonomy, and must be met, and must be challenged, and must be overthrown. I want to argue for nothing less than that.
Yeah, because as we were just talking about, even though the Catholic Church isn't the all-consuming theocratic power that it once was, it shows what happens when theology has the political power, which is a thing the United States is very, very in danger of right now.
Yes.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
And the sort of the I think that during the modern age, the illusion is broken. The people have seen what's behind the curtain. So we're sort of now, us atheists are going, well, why do Christians have this special place in determining what's right and wrong for our society? Why should any religion have a special place in determining what's right? Shouldn't we shape our society based upon outcomes and what's best for people rather than the whims of one religion or another? And that sort of illusion that, hey, we have this special knowledge that allows us to decide for you what is best for you. that ship, I think, is sailed. Like that is sort of, I think people, or at least I hope people realize that that's an illusion. It's sleight of hand. It's the man behind the curtain. It's the Wizard of Oz, like I am the great and all powerful. There's no reason why that person should be in charge.
Yeah, yeah. The whole premise of the special knowledge thing, that was based on the the belief in the infallibility. God is perfect,
Right.
the church is perfect, the word is perfect, and now we know
Right.
none of those things. Like even
Right.
the Bible showed that God, Yahweh anyway, is not perfect.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
church has
yeah.
had to backpedal on so many things. We know they're not infallible.
Yeah.
They're not perfect. They've been wrong about so much. It just there's there's no real force behind that we know what's best special knowledge nonsense. It
Yeah,
just boils down to ego at this point. And some people are running
that
with that, but
yes, but that's not to say that people in churches shouldn't have their, input into society. It's just that there's no reason to elevate your church. And I'm sorry if this is offensive to theists. There's no reason to elevate your church to some sort of special position in our society. You get a contributing say just like everybody else. But they sort of act like, well, we have to do it according to Christian values. Really? Why? Why?
yeah, the Taliban says the same thing. We have to do things according to Sharia law.
Yes.
But why?
Why?
And weirdly, no fundamentalist believer has any problem with dismissing anybody else's fundamentalist beliefs, but they can't apply
Correct.
the
Yeah.
same reasoning, the reason for the dismissal, to their own because they believe it. They have to be right because they have the special knowledge.
Well, they even dismiss other denominations in their own religions, like,
Yeah.
beliefs. That's the thing. Like, oh, but we're the really real Christians. I don't care. It doesn't matter whether you're the really, really, really real Christians. You don't get you don't get to determine what's best for everybody based upon your religion. That that illusion has broken. That has broken.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to accept that. They need to accept that religion is not the moral compass of society anymore. It's just not. Deal with that in whatever way makes you happy.
Yeah, arguably, it never was. Just people pretended.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay. I see a spooky. Hello, spooky.
I'm John, and so's my wife. Spooky. You're awesome.
We love our spooky.
It's actually rather wonderful, isn't it? The religious authorities who used to say they were infallible say, just take the last pope, just the last. I know I'm not talking with a Catholic apologist this evening, but nonetheless, the church, when people say the church, they know which one they mean. They mean the one in Rome. The one where when Stephen Hawking was invited and was asked at the conference on the church and science, is there anything he'd like to see in Rome while he was there, he said he'd like to see the records of the trial of Galileo. Please be invoking Mr. Hawking, by the way, as if he was a deist. The last pope, just in the last decade of his tenure, apologized. He said, we were wrong about the Jewish question. We probably shouldn't have said for so long the Jews were responsible for the murder of Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They probably
That's
shouldn't
a bad
have.
idea. Yeah. Seems like people took that literally because you're the freaking church.
I'm reminded of what people used to say in my elementary school when I was really, really little. People still said that. Oh, the Jews killed Jesus. And there was a counter group of people. I don't know if they grew up to be atheists or what, but they would say, Jesus was a Jew, you dum-dum.
Yeah, that's right.
Come on now. Come on.
We were probably wrong in forced conversion of the peoples of the Indies, as they were thought of, the isthmus and the southern cone of our hemisphere.
So that's a fun thing. It's a tangent, but I'm going to go there because it's quick. So here in the United States, we have a holiday called Columbus Day. And we want to ban it because Columbus did horrible things.
Yeah.
But, some Italian Americans are up in arms because they're like, oh, Cristobal Colombo, he's the Italian dude. He's what, us Italian Americans can look up to and yada yada. And people are like, well, what's the big deal with Columbus? Why does he get a statue? He didn't prove the Earth was round. We know that people then knew the Earth was round. He didn't successfully find the way to India. He did horrible, horrible things. Like, there's so much wrong with this guy. Why did he get so famous to begin with? Well, there's two factors. The first is, of course, Washington Irving. That dude made a lot of stories famous. That's kind of his shtick.
Sure, yeah.
The second is the reason people cared about Columbus in the first place wasn't because he was Italian, wasn't because he discovered America or any of that stuff. It was because he brought Christianity to the Western Hemisphere. It was because he caused the Spanish to be able to do the conquistador thing, to spread Christianity to more people than it had ever been able to reach before. He was practically a fucking saint.
Yes.
Because of what he did for the church. That's why he got so damn famous. The rest, it's revisionist history. That 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It's because it's not politic anymore to say, well, you know, he spread Christianity. No, it's he discovered the New World or whatever. It's all nonsense. Just so that's my rant on that one.
We were certainly wrong. We owe an apology to the Muslims for the atrocities of the Crusades. We owe an apology to the Eastern Orthodox churches for the incredible butchery to which they, our fellow Christians, were subjected by us, the Roman Catholic Church. And we probably owe an apology to the Protestants for saying so many awful things about them and torturing and burning and killing them too. So having now said we were completely wrong and completely cruel and completely sadistic and completely violent and retarded human civilization for that many centuries in that many countries and continents, we're quit. And now we can go back to being infallible all over again. There are people who, on faith, will accept being spoken to in that tone of voice and in that way. But I, ladies and gentlemen, am not one of them. And I don't think there's any form of persuasion that should allow you to be spoken to as if you were serfs or slaves either.
Yeah, the age of serfs where, you know, the preacher could dictate from the pulpit. Now, there are still churches where people actively engage like that. They prefer to be spoken of, and far be it from me to kink shame. But it's not an automatic given anymore. And it hasn't been for a very long time. In fact, there's an ever-increasing number of us who look back at history, who look at the horrors of the church, and while the church is not the same as God, the fact that the religion that is supposed to be from the God literally cost us over 1,000 years of technological advancement, of scientific achievement. I can just imagine that for a minute. 1,000 years. You know, dozens and dozens of generations living in the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
Serfs, no medicine, high childhood mortality, because of the church.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of think that even modern churches, as we sort of progress, I think that eventually you will see some of these modern churches apologize for things that they have done wrong. Even these days, you know, we're sorry we sent missionaries to Africa and convinced them that witches actually exist, you know, like, and that some of their women were witches, kind of thing. We're sorry that we allowed prosperity gospel to make people incredibly wealthy at the cost of poor people. You know, some of these things I predict that they're going to have to apologize for still. We're sorry we downtrodden the gay and you know, the LGBT community and trod them into the ground, kind of thing. Like, you really have to put an eye on the future and think about whether you're going to end up apologizing for the actions that you've taken today, because I firmly believe that some of these churches will have to swallow their pride and do that in the future, and they might take note of the Catholic Church and how red-faced they are right now, and how sort of badly they're going right now. Some leaders see it. You know, Ken Ham famously did, and I was going to do a thing on Ken Ham and his sort of, people are leaving the church, we're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he absolutely is adamant that we've got to do something to get people back because they are leaving the churches in droves. I don't think he has the most honest motivation for it. I think he's, it's more the money that he's seen going. But
Buy my
you know,
DVD.
the honest ones will acknowledge. It's only the people online that you see say, "Hey, we're gaining ground." It's like, no, nobody thinks that. Not even your own leaders. Nobody does.
Yeah, and it's sadly true that they still do hold the high ground. Like, take average of three atheist channels you can think of, and then compare them to three evangelist channels you can think of. And I guarantee you that the evangelists will have a huge subscriber advantage. There's very, very few atheist alliance. There's Aaron Ra. There's a genetically modified skeptic, both with big subscriber counts. And then as far as I'm aware, the next biggest is Forrest Valkai, who doesn't even primarily focus on atheism.
Right.
He's an evolutionary biologist educator who only mentions atheism on his own channel when directly confronted with theological claims that contradict evolutionary biology even. So, and he's right around 200K, which is nothing to sneeze at, but it's not the 1.5 million of freaking Baptist Central or whatever the hell, It's so they're losing people, but
I know.
Church of Ember, cool. Everybody be John. That'll make things easy for me because I am the worst with names, as I've mentioned before. Everyone is John.
Just imagine your member thank you. That's just John. Thank you to all my Patreons and members, John.
Oh, boy.
Proceeding with the ontology with which I began, the Aquinas point, that if you can conceive of something, whether it's a ghost, a phantasm, or a deity, if you can conceive of something, it is in some sense real if it's real in your mind. And showing with the obvious fallacy that has always attended that, is it nonetheless possible for an atheist to say, a proclaimed atheist to say, as I do, proclaim myself to be, that God positively can be said not to exist? No. It's a very common misunderstanding about my fraternity sorority. I'll just take a moment to clear it up. The atheist says, no persuasive argument for the existence of God has ever been advanced or adduced without convincing rebuttal. That no argument in favor stands or has been found to stand the test of argument and evidence. We cannot say that we know that there could be no such entity. Among other things, we are too reverent of the extraordinary time of discovery, innovation, pushing back of the frontiers of knowledge and understanding that's taking place just in our own time to make any such remark. But by saying this, we say, I think, quite a lot. There is no valid or coherent or consistent argument that would not work, if it comes to that, for the existence of any God. Now, I noticed it was by a slight work of illusion, a bit of tap dancing there, that Dr. Turek went from being a deist to a theist, and then from being a theist to a Christian. Now, I know he does not believe in the existence of the sun god Ra. I'm practically certain he doesn't believe in the existence of Zeus.
Well, I mean, first of all, you can't really deny the sun god Ra, because we can see the sun, therefore,
Yeah. As Josh Carlin said, when you can see something, gives a lot of credibility.
Exactly.
If you'll pick up a copy of my Portable Atheist, a selection of the finest writings by non-believers, down the years, and just turn to the 3 pages where H.L. Mencken lists the easiest to name 3,000 gods that used to be worshipped and that no longer are held to exist by anybody, you'll spare me the trouble of reading them out. No, he thinks he doesn't just know, Dr. Turek, that there is a God. He knows which one is the right one from a potentially infinite list, actually from a list that's as long as the number of people there are or have ever been in the human species, because if you ever argue with a theist or a deist, as I do every day, you'll find they all believe in a God of their very own. Indeed, they often say a personal God.
Indeed. There are as many versions of Christianity as there are Christians. But Christopher hasn't even addressed the full scope of the situation. It isn't just the list of all gods humanity has come up with. It's also the list of gods that humans have not even imagined. Because the real God, if there is one, could and very likely would be something no human has ever dreamed up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Sure.
maybe it is a flying spaghetti monster or something like it. We don't know.
Indeed, they often say a personal savior. So out of what are we reifying a concept that applies to all of us? Out of nothing but wish thinking and nonsense and fear and ignorance and above all, and I'm not quitting on this point, servility. Everyone in this room is an atheist. Everyone can name a God in which they do not believe. Let them advance the case that the one in which they believe is the superior one. Let Dr. Turek be the first person I've ever met to do that convincingly this evening, and I will show him due respect. I don't think the task can actually be undertaken. Now,
Well,
the same tap dancing.
undertaken, but maybe not completed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's always the shifting of the burden, as and I've seen a lot of theists take this on. Like famously a few years ago, Ricky Gervais appeared on the Stephen Colbert Show, and he's done it a few other times too, but especially on this one instance. And he says to Stephen says, "What does it mean to be an atheist?" And Stephen says, "Well, or not Stephen, Ricky says,
Yeah.
humanity has dreamed up, let's say, 3,000 gods over the years, and you don't believe in 2,999 of them, and I only disbelieve in one more than you."
Yep.
And lately, I've seen a number of apologists, Brian Holdsworth, the what do you meme guy, etc. There's a bunch of people who've recently latched onto those kinds of things, and they're like, "This is a terrible argument. It's not meant to be an argument. It's a quip, you jackass."
Well, and it's also trying to get them to understand our position, kind of thing. Like, if you just extend that non-belief in Allah and Shiva and all of these other gods and Zeus, and just apply it to that one extra god, that's how it feels to be an atheist. You just have that one extra thing that you don't have to pay attention to. It's just trying to explain how we see the world.
Yeah.
You already know what it is to be an atheist, as Hitchens so eloquently put. You know what it is to be an atheist because you don't believe in all those other gods. So if you just apply that to your God, you understand what it's like to be an atheist because you're an atheist to millions of other gods.
Yeah. And I think it's fundamental to cutting to the chase, to be like, so, when we say we want you to demonstrate your God, this is what we mean. You have no problem rejecting all these others because there isn't a reason to believe in them. Well, we don't have a reason to believe in yours. Can you show us something that's different from their arguments that is convincing?
Well, I think the thing that gets me is the sort of uneven intellectual standards. Like for every other god, the bar is this high. And for your own God, the bar is as William Lane Craig put it, if you can't meet the bar, lower the bar. But that's only for your God. I've seen people make arguments for their God, hear the same arguments for the Christian God say, hear the same argument for Allah and reject that argument. And there's literally no difference in the argument. It's really weird that sort of intellectual inconsistency where your standards of evidence are so low for your own God and so high for everything else. It's weird. It's just weird.
Yeah. And I wish I had that clip from Craig. As you know, I love to play my clips, but I haven't harvested that particular one yet. I'm hoping to have it in the future.
Hopes you will not notice that deism and theism are two quite different things. The deist argument says that there is so much order apparent in nature and in the cosmos and in the universe that it might be unwise to assume that such order has no one interested in ordering or designing it. That assumption might be an unsafe one. The philosopher Paley, in his Natural Theology, said design implies a designer. He came up with the very famous image of the watch. If you come across a watch, if you're a primitive tribesperson in the Sahara, you may not know what it's for, but you know that it's not a rock or a vegetable. You know it has a purpose, and someone made it that way. Until quite recently, that was the default position of most intelligent people, including Mr. Jefferson. who, despite his intermittent atheism, in my judgment, was a theist. I'm so sorry, was a deist. He would debate with, among the many skills he had, was a very advanced level of paleontology. He would debate with the greatest paleontologist of his time, the Count de Buffon. How comes it? How can it be that we find seashells so high on the mountains of Virginia? How can this be? Not even the most intelligent people of that day, and it's very recent, it's an instant in historical time, had any idea how that could be. There isn't anyone in this room who wasn't educated and brought up knowing exactly how that is.
That is a fun one, because there's still people today who argue,
Yes.
oh, that's proof of a global flood. How else could it be? Argument from incredulity. And that's actually sort of the important bit about the argument from incredulity, because there's arguments like that from the past where we now have an answer. So just because we don't have an answer today doesn't mean there is no answer. It doesn't mean it's automatically God.
Right, look at spontaneous generation, where people would say, hey, flies just come out of meat. How could that be? And you know, these worms just come out of the ground. It must be a creator god creating them, coming out of the earth and stuff. We know that's not true.
Why isn't Hitchens' tomb empty? It's sort of a weird irony that Hitchens kind of proves his own case by continuing to be dead. You know. And in fact, you could argue that every believer who's ever died kind of proves the truth of atheism with regards to their specific religion, because so many of them, not all of them, of course, like, you know, Hinduism and Buddhism have reincarnation built into their cake, but so many of the Abrahamic faiths have this idea of eternal life, and yet they're still in their graves. So
yeah,
that's always bugged me, especially from people who outright say you won't even taste death. They're clearly tasting death, which means what they were told is clearly not true.
Right.
It's just a shame that Jefferson and many other intelligent and humane and well-educated and literate people just couldn't see that far. He wasn't to know, though Darwin was born in his day, on the same day, actually in 1809 as Abraham Lincoln, the very same day, the two great emancipators, Darwin being, in my judgment, the greater of the two. Now we know this proposition to be true, the proposition that was ridiculed so pathetically, I have to say, I thought, by Dr. Turek. There is no explanation for the origins of our species, for the origins of our cosmos, for the origins of our globe itself. There is not one explanation left which requires the existence of a deus ex machina. In every case, we have a better or sufficient explanation. I think that assertion of mine will stand any challenge this evening. I'm looking forward to hearing some more of them. Of course, Darwin used creationist images. He actually set out to vindicate Paley's theology, thought he could do it.
And that's another fun point.
Yeah.
Much of science was the result of Christian scientists going out to try to confirm something from religion and then finding something else instead.
Yes.
Often they held on to their faith. They said, oh, well, now we understand how God did it better. But sometimes it destroyed their faith. They're like, this thing that absolutely had to be true turns out was not true at all. So, oops.
And I mean, a lot of during the Enlightenment, the deists sort of said, well, they wanted to examine God's handiwork, how he set things up, which was perfectly fine. Like, I get that. It's just this whole idea that, like, of all of the explanations we have found for all of the gaps in our knowledge, and this is sort of getting back to where I sort of sang God of the gaps at Turek, he's sort of saying, hey, we don't understand this stuff, therefore God. Of all of the explanations we've ever come across, the billions and billions of things we've found out, God, or even anything supernatural, has never been the answer once. Not even once. It's always been something natural.
Yeah, every time you shove God into a gap, it may take us 100 years or more, but he always gets evicted.
Yep.
Meanwhile, there has never, ever, ever been a naturalistic solution. While they have been corrected by other naturalistic solutions, they have never been evicted and replaced with a god and provided a better explanation. So, I mean, you know. But it doesn't mean it'll never happen. That's an argument from incredulity.
By his taxonomical study of nature. Einstein used God images when he spoke of the extraordinary majesty of the cosmos. It's in us. It's in our vocabulary. It's hardwired in us, you might almost say, to use images of awe-inspiring, godly, Mozartian, you might say, or even Shakespearean images when talking about these things. But when we come down to the actual analysis of them, we find that we don't need the prime mover at all, and that most of the prime mover explanations, if not all of them, have been positively misleading, so that the deist may propose a designer, and I may not be able to show you convincingly that there could be no such person, but the theist has all their work still ahead of them. From this designer, how do we get to the designer who answers prayers? Did you hear a thing? I mean, just a phrase, even an implication, even a suggestion from anything my opponent said, that you could, by an argument from design, prove answered prayers? Or prove that someone born of a virgin was therefore the son of a god? Or could prove that resurrections occur, and that by people being tortured to death thousands of years ago, we are now redeemed, that we are vicariously forgiven our own offenses by human sacrifice? How does
Yay, human sacrifice. And that's justice, of course, isn't it? That whole vicarious redemption. You don't have to pay for anything because God did it for you. Just imagine. Just imagine.
And you do hear people talking like, you can do anything and you're already forgiven. It's being paid for in advance, kind of thing. So how does that make a moral system?
Yeah, it's not justice, and you've got a perfectly just God. It just, I don't know. Nitty says, I kid you not, a guest on Capturing Christianity posited that God manipulates reality down to the quantum states to do miracles. That sounds fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun conversation.
It reminds me of a thing that came up a while back. I can't remember exactly where it was from because it was more than a week ago, so it's just mush in my head. But somebody posited that there is no such thing as gravity. It's actually tiny little Jesuses, lots and lots of Jesuses that are functioning the way old standard model used to posit gravitons behaved. It's Jesus is the transmitting force between masses that draws them together. It's a bunch of little Jesuses pulling you to the ground.
Like the barrel of monkeys that you get that all link arms. And
that was a fun game. I wonder, they don't sell it in the US anymore. I don't know why. Oh, and she was an astronaut, by which I presume you mean she was a space cadet? Oh, damn it, Titan beat me to it.
Titan always does, yeah.
Yep, Titan's too quick on the trigger. Oh, well. I had to try, though. You never get anywhere if you don't try.
Theism help you to that? It doesn't. It quite simply doesn't and cannot. And the attempt to build from one to the other is a conjuring trick of a very vulgar, I think, kind.
Just believe.
We live in the childhood of our species, so when Stephen Hawking says that if we could understand the event horizon that surrounds the black hole, we would, in some sense, know the mind of God, he proves that our vocabulary is still that of our infancy. He makes no concession to the idea of a theist or theocratic dispensation. I'd better ask now how I'm doing for time. Good. Not sure I'm going to need all that. But I'd like to try and reply and fight on my feet when I can. And I made some notes about what Dr. Turek had said, and I feel that they were challenges to me that I would be ignoble if I didn't respond to. The first, and I thought frankly, the most egregious, was this. I find it extraordinary that it can be said on a university campus, in this year of grace, that without God, humans are capable of doing anything. That there is no moral restraint upon us if we don't concur in the idea that we are the property and creation of a supreme being.
Yes, we all have to be owned by someone. Who is your master? What a disgusting ideology.
yeah, pretty much.
Who's your daddy? I never got. When they came out with the Star Wars Special Edition movies, at certain places you could buy something and get a memorabilia thing, and some of them came with a complimentary movie poster, which was Darth Vader doing the hand gesture, join me kind of thing, and immediately people turned it into a meme, and they changed it to "Who's your daddy," and then very, very quickly thereafter, people replaced Darth Vader with Obi-Wan Kenobi because he looks like Jesus. And,
Right.
who's your daddy? I'm easily amused. What can I say? Also a Star Wars nerd, but details.
I'm making the assumption that all of you check in every now and then with some kind of news outlet and have a view of what's going on in the rest of the world. Isn't it as plain as could be that those who commit the most callous, the most cruel, the most brutal, the most indiscriminate atrocities of all, do so precisely because they believe they have divine permission? Shall I answer my own question? Shall I insult you by adding more? Who can't think of an example of this kind? Let me put the question in another form that I've put in now. Every forum from YouTube to C-SPAN, to the wireless, to the print, to the radio, to the television, and
He mentioned us, kind of.
Yay!
We got a plug.
Current events. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the platform got a plug, but
Sure.
innumerable forums to those who say that without God there can be no morality. You are to ask yourself two questions. You are to name a moral action undertaken, or a moral and ethical statement made by a believer. I dare say you can do it. You are then to say that you can not imagine a non-believer making this moral statement or undertaking this moral action. Can you think? Can you now think? Can any of you think? You don't have to answer now. You have all night, and you have my email. And I've done this with everyone from the Archbishop of Canterbury to even lower people. You name me the ethical and moral action or statement that a believer can make and an unbeliever cannot, and there's a prize. And I'll tell you about that later. Now there's a second question. Think of something wicked that only a believer would be likely to do, or something wicked that only a believer would be likely to say. You've already thought of it. The suicide bombing community is entirely religious. The genital mutilation community is entirely religious.
Well, in fairness, there are still a large number of people who believe in infant genital mutilation who think it's for medical reasons.
Yeah. But
So-
the impetus that derives from is a religious sector. It has been because the religious people have bandied about that it's better for them medically when that is not the case. They bandied about it was easier to keep clean, and that is not the case.
Yeah, it was a justification kind of thing.
Yep.
Post hoc? Ad hoc?
Rationalization. Yeah.
One of those hawks. It was a hawk job.
Post hoc. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that the child abuse community is entirely religious. I wouldn't. But it's bidding to be entirely religious. It operates on the old Latin slogan, no child's behind left. How
No, that's a low blow. It's almost fair considering, what the Catholic Church has been up to and several non-Catholic churches.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I want to fight on that hill. Because I don't...
Yeah. So, I think that the incident rates aren't that high, but so my problem with it is not that the incident rates are particularly high. It's the cover up by the church itself, the institution itself kind of thing, right? So, number one, it shows that the priests of the Catholic Church especially, and other churches where this occurs, are no more moral than the average person out on the street. If their incidence of this happening is roughly the same, then they are no more moral than those other people, for a start. Number two, the institution itself covered it up, and they continue to cover this kind of thing up. It makes the church look bad, because their authority ultimately is derived from some sort of moral authority. So that is why it is so egregious. It's because they claim the moral high ground while being no better and sometimes worse than the average population.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing. Like, if you catch somebody doing something bad, it's not your fault, But if you cover up for them, now you've taken some of the responsibility, you know?
Yeah.
So that
Yep.
even though you could have made the case, if the church had acted correctly, morally, against these abusers, then
Yes.
maybe it'd make the church look a little bad, but no one could fault them for what they did. But by doing
Correct.
what they did, now they're responsible. And in fact,
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
they're not just accessories. They're directly responsible for the
Hmm.
abuses that happened after those priests got caught. And they
Yes.
shuffled them and let them do it again anyway.
Yep.
Dare anybody, how dare anyone who speaks for religion say of us, the secular and the non-believers, that we are the immoral ones? It is itself a wicked thing to say. Itself an absolutely indefensible thing to say. No, the decapitation on the bus is going to be done by someone who thinks God is telling him to do it. Smerdyakov is actually the stupidest character in Dostoevsky's novel. He's the one who makes this proposition. Everyone has to understand that it is those who feel that the divine is prompting them, who feel they're permitted anything and everything. And it is those who are the leading, most salient, most violent, most vicious opponents of the values and civilization that Thomas Jefferson stood for and promulgated. Just on the question of fine-tuning, I have a number of responses. We'll have to postpone some of the naturalistic questions for later, when I know they'll come up again.
So he's kind of cheating a little bit. He's rebutting in his opening
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah. Which isn't great. Yeah. No, I marks off for Hitchens for doing this.
Yeah, if we were keeping score, I mean, I love the dude, but I'd have to deduct points.
Hmm.
Incidentally, random aside, I recently opened up a Discord for this channel. Of course, you know, everybody's welcome. Channel members and patrons get like access to exclusive channels and such, but everybody's welcome. And I'm trying to set up a debate club. Possibly it'll stay on Discord, possibly it'll become a thing on YouTube. I don't freaking know. But the idea is to kind of counteract some of this trash fire stuff that we've been seeing in modern debates lately, where people emotionally argue for their own side. They don't have good arguments. They don't understand where the other side is coming from. This debate club, you would join and you'd be matched with somebody, and for your debate, the topic and your position would be assigned to you. So you don't have to worry about being dishonest because it's not your choice. But the exercise is to help you understand both sides of a position better. This is what we did in my debate classes in school. You understand both sides of the position. You can empathize with where the other person is coming from, and it makes your ability to argue better. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, do pop over to the Discord. The link is on the community tab right on my page. Join up. Once we have a few people, we'll start putting together some matches. It'll be a fun time, and hopefully it'll make future debates a little bit better.
Hmm.
I know it's a weird place to put a plug, but it just, you know, it fits here.
You mentioned Edwin Hubble and the way that he saw the red light shift and saw that the universe was not just expanding, but expanding very fast away from itself, that the Big Bang had not stopped. Lawrence Krauss, great physicist, probably the next Nobel Prize winner, has noticed that most of people's assumption was wrong. That though this expansion was taking place, it was thought, the rate of speed of expansion must surely be declining. People still think in Newtonian terms in this way. No, says Krauss, he's pointed it out, and now it's agreed by all. No, the Hubble rate of red light shift is increasing. The universe is dissipating itself at high speed, and the speed is getting greater. What does this mean? Well, it answers the question of why is there something instead of nothing? Because now we have something. We're all here because there's something. And nothing is coming right for us. Very soon, a physicist wouldn't be able to tell the Big Bang had ever taken place. So far sprung apart will the whole system be. And meanwhile, look at...
So Dr. T would doubtless, if he hasn't died from an aneurysm yet, would not be having fun with this part either, because while
Right.
it was true-ish, it hadn't been confirmed, but it was modeled when this debate took place, that not only was the universe expanding, but the rate was accelerating. It's now far, far less certain. It's honestly, we're not sure what the hell is going on. Like we've every measurement we make, every instrument we use to measure. Let me rephrase. we trust radiometric dating here on Earth because every result confirms every other result. It's a self-consistent system of multiple types of measurement. When we try a similar thing with the age of the universe in space, when we try to measure the Hubble constant, every instrument gets us a different result. And for a while, those results were within each other's error bars, and it wasn't a problem. But as many of you have probably heard, it's the so-called crisis in cosmology. The results are no longer within each other's error bars, and it's been getting worse. So we don't really know if what we think we know about the way the universe is behaving is actually true. Maybe the model needs adjustment. Maybe we're about to verge on another one of those paradigm shifts. We don't know.
Yep.
We just know something is up, you know? So I know Dr. T would want to point that out.
Yeah.
But on what Hitchens actually says, working with the model that he had available at the time, it is true that in enough time, all we'd be able to see is the Milky Way. All the other galaxies would be, if not too far, at least moving too fast. Their light redshifted so severely we can no longer detect it. We'd appear to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a trippy thing, too.
In the sky at night, and you can see the Andromeda Galaxy headed straight for us on a direct collision course. Who designed that? Who made it certain that every other planet in our solar system is either too hot or too cold to support life, as is most of our own planet, and that in just one tiny, irrelevant solar system already condemned to heat death and implosion? Some design, wouldn't you say? But these are just the paltering, minor objections that I have to the theistic worldview. The main one is the one with which I began. Religion, theism, not deism, theism I underline. Theism says that all our manifold problems, what is the good? How shall we live it? How shall we know it? How to explain suffering? How to confront the possibility of our own, perhaps molecular irrelevance? All these questions that must disturb and detain us all can be solved by referring them upward to a totalitarian judgment, to an absolutist monarch. The other thing that the Virginia Statute on Religious Freedom was supposed to repudiate, disown, yes. I promise you, 30 seconds. There is no totalitarian solution to these problems. There is no big brother in the sky. It is a horrible idea that there is somebody who owns us, who makes us, who supervises us, waking and sleeping, who knows our thoughts, who can convict us of thought.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He
Yeah,
knows
it's Santa
when you're
Claus, yeah.
awake.
But he's also doing, like, he's kind of, I understand that he's just doing it to parallel against sort of Turek's, wouldn't it be nice if there was a God? Well, no, not necessarily kind of thing is what he's doing. But he's also doing an argument from consequence, right? So the idea that if you argue that, hey, it would be horrible if there's a God, I understand that he's paralleling against Turek's, it would be nice, but it's, again, an argument from consequence. It's an argument, well, wouldn't it be horrible if there was a God? Well, that doesn't make it true or not true.
Yeah. It's I love it when arguments get turned around like that. Like, well, look how dumb this is, because if we look at it this way, using exactly the same logic, here's what happens.
Yeah.
Crime?
I don't know. I think Hitchens is making a fallacy here. I think he's making a fallacy.
Well, yeah, he may be doing it to illustrate the point, but it is still a fallacy. It just,
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, he's kind of prone to certain kinds of fallacies, like that. I can't think of the name of it. It's one of those variants on argument to authority, because, like when he blames the church's horrible behavior on God, it isn't necessarily God's fault. The church could be the most horrible thing ever created, and it doesn't mean God doesn't exist.
Correct.
Just that humans are really, really bad at things.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just for what we think, who can judge us while we sleep for things that might occur to us in our dreams, who can create us sick, as apparently we are, and then order us on pain of eternal torture to be well again. To demand this, to wish this to be true, is to wish to live as an abject slave. It is a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing, in my submission, that we now have enough information, enough intelligence, and I hope enough intellectual and moral courage to say that this ghastly proposition is founded on a lie, and to celebrate that fact. And I invite you to join me in doing so. Thank you.
All right.
We've only made it through like 36 minutes of it, which is just terrible, terrible.
Although, in fairness, almost all of it was Frank, and we really did almost have to go line by line on him, because otherwise he just would have gish-galloped. We wouldn't even be able to address the previous things, you know?
I'll do the part two. I'm more than happy to do the part two. I really want to finish this one off, actually. So if you shoot over a link to the thing, I'll grab it, and then we can do the part two on my channel next week. So stay tuned for next week, when Amber will be joining me, and we'll be doing the part two to does God exist between Hitchens and Turek, and we can kind of get into the back and forth there a bit.
Oh yeah, the back and forth of conversation between them is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
It's some really good stuff. It's got some of the all-time classic Hitchens lines, like shit that's still memes today. It's really, really cool.
Slaps, yeah.
And as an added bonus, because Mark will be at the helm, we might start on time.
I make no promises. I make no promises. No, you're fine. You're fine. I totally understand. Well, maybe we should set it for 9:30. That would be fine by me. I've got no problem with that. It just allows me to spend a bit more time doing other stuff. It's perfectly fine. I don't really mind.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe when I set it up, I was hoping we could start a little bit earlier. So because where I am, it's 12:45 a.m., which, in fairness, I've stayed up a lot later, but it's still not exactly early either. But I really thought I had it set to start at 9:30, but.
Oh, that's right. We can talk about it. It's no problem. I'll post in my community chat. I will let people know when it will start, and post it up as soon as I can. Not a problem at all.
Yeah. Oh, that's an idea. We could take a vote with our communities, and
Sure.
See what people. I don't know. I'm just throwing shit out there.
I love polls. It's very well known. Love the polls.
They're so straight and often shiny.
Yeah.
So perfect, so lovely.
The lack of hair, I feel connected to them. I feel like they're my type of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty. Well, thanks everybody so much for sticking with us. It's been long, and we didn't make that much progress, but it was pretty fun, and we got to talk about a lot of really cool, important things. So, I mean, that's what we're here for. Before we go, what have you got coming up this week, Mark?
I don't think I have a lot. I'm probably going to set up a couple of interviews and see if I can get them done. I've been really enjoying the interviews lately. They've been really interesting. I've got the gaming on my gaming channel on Tuesday night as well, but that's all I've got set up. I don't have a lot for this week. So, I'll probably do some streams. I really have to get better organized when it comes to this stuff, but never mind. I'll have some stuff going on during the week.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, Monday, there's I haven't heard for sure, but I presume there's probably going to be another Creation Science Theater over on Doc Dino's channel. Those are always fun. Tomorrow, well, today for me now, I'll be on Aaron Roz as usual, and then immediately after, 8:30 Eastern, Neil the 604 Atheist is coming over for an Atheist Lives interview.
Yeah, Neil's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, he's fun to hang out with. And it'll be kind of neat, since he's always asking people about their deconversion stories. Even though he has in the past, he's been doing this forever. It'll be nice for him to be able to tell his story for a change. So that should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, awesome. That's wicked. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so all kinds of good stuff. Alrighty. So, once again, I appreciate you guys hanging out. Hello, Incher. It's nice to see you. Casey, Randy. We're towards the end of the party, but I'm still trying to say hi to everybody. But it's been a fun episode. I appreciate the hell out of you guys. Hanging out with you folks it really is my favorite thing. It makes my day better, and I appreciate it. So thank y'all so much. And yeah, thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing, thanks for sharing, and all the cool things that you do here on YouTube. And as always, remember, you don't have to try to gish gallop and shotgun an argument in order to try to make people think that maybe you might know what you're talking about more than the other guy who actually does, because you're better than religion. Good night.
Good night.